Been a civil war waging for the last 2 years, and those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies. Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you, and a very happy new year. I know it's sort of a day later, but it still is only the 2nd of January, and we do know that January is going to last about 923 days, so we better all sort of bed in for the month. Good to have your company this afternoon, and that is really what I'm hoping for through the next 3 hours, is lots of your company. We leave a lot of space in this programme for you to be able to talk back, so please do give us a call and join in the conversation. What I want to talk to you about this afternoon, there's quite a few stories. Of course, you can nip in at any point if you like, but it's about these ID cards, or this digital ID that is now, we're now being told, is mandatory. And now it appears that it isn't about stopping illegal migrants from getting a job, because babies could be asked to have IDs. Now, they're saying they won't be compelled to, but at this stage we know that when it's voluntary for a while, and then it becomes mandatory. So I want to hear from you about IDs. Many people have gone off the idea of these digital IDs. Some people thought that they were a good idea, but more and more people now, about 47% of us are now saying we do not want these digital IDs. Are digital IDs a threat to our privacy, do you think? Do you think that they are a sneaking, creeping, dystopian view of the world, that they are actually going to be taking away our privacy? I'm just looking at the Chinese system of social credits. It doesn't look like it's very far away. And once we open that door, that's my concern. I don't trust any government with digital ID. If they want us to have an ID card, fine, it can be on paper or plastic or whatever they want. But a digital one is, I think, really, really scary. But are you of the opinion that, well, if you've got nothing to fear, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, that actually, if you're a good, honest member of society, then a digital ID shouldn't scare you at all? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. And do you think that we should have a digital ID for babies, so from cradle to grave? Let me know what you think about that. Calls are charged at the national rate, but of course we do call you back. And you can text your message, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. So more on that story coming up through the next 3 hours. We're also going to be looking at the weather. We're rubbish at the weather, aren't we, in this country? So we're looking at that. Some really quite intense snow up in Scotland, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be too bad for the rest of the country. But we'll chat about that a little bit later on. We're also going to be looking at the situation in Tehran as Donald Trump declares that he is locked and loaded and ready to strike Iran if they don't leave protesters alone. The poor are getting poorer under Labour. Many of the green policies are being blamed for that. And the Islamist killer who has won £240,000 battle over his human rights, 7,500 of that in compensation and the rest of it in legal fees. So we'll be looking into that as well. So all of that is to come. I'd be interested to hear your views on that as well, to be honest, and your views on all things. So please do get ready to join in and be the conversation. Right now, though, I'm absolutely thrilled to say that I'm joined by Steve N. Allen, who's a comedian and a broadcaster, as we go through the top stories of the day. Steve, a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. Nice to be here.
Nice to you. My son Jake says hello, by the way.
Hello.
You know him, you work with him at the other place.
I see. Oh, hello, Jake.
Hosken.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it's a fairly common surname. I didn't immediately guess.
Get it. Well, there you go. Steve, good to have you on board. What about these IDs for babies? I mean, they're saying that it won't be compelled, which is, I always think, yet. I always put that at the end of a sentence. But this does fly in the face of what Labour was saying these ID cards were all about in the first place.
Yeah, I think we can go even further back. So, no mention of this at all pre-election. This is not in a manifesto. This was never floated around. And then it gets thrown out there as an idea. And the idea was all about, I tell you what we'll do to stop these boat migrants getting work. We'll bring in this digital ID that they won't need, because if you work in the black economy, you don't need to have papers. But for the rest of us, all of a sudden, we'd need to have a digital ID to work. And then babies get involved. I mean, babies don't need to work, do they? None of this seems to make sense. They've immediately gone to another place in this story. No one talked about this at all. The thing that it's made, unless somehow there is a boat migrant who manages to cross the channel and appear in a maternity ward, if you can make it look like you're a baby, you're David Copperfield. Well done, you've done well there. It's not right, and I'll tell you why it's not right, because look at where we are in the story. This is at a time when they've thrown the idea out there and all the polls say people don't like it. So what you should do if you're the Labour government is try and work on selling the story, selling on why it could be good for adults. Instead, when everyone's saying we don't like the sounds, we didn't like it in the 90s when Blair was doing it and no one's liking it now, and they're going, OK, well, let's do it to kids then. What, are you trying to be less popular as a government? The idea of picking on babies and make them do it. And they say it's not compelled. No, it won't be compelled. But they'll make it so difficult to not have one that you'll end up getting one. Nothing's ever compelled. It's just so difficult to say no.
It has always been really interesting to me that a kind of socialist governments are the ones that are pushing for this, for this kind of overreach, this kind of overwatch, if you like, of populations. Because, like you said, Tony Blair's been pushing for this even on the sidelines for a very long time. And I think there are family involved in some of the companies that might be involved in supplying these digital IDs. But it still seems to be such a Labour thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know why they don't think it like a couple of steps further down the line. Because even if you are Labour dyed in the wool, right, you're a massive Labour fan, you think Labour governments are going to do all the good things. Let's give more power to the state. But what happens when you lose the next election or the one after that? At some point, you must be aware that the political pendulum swings. So if you give the state too much power, if you're a massive Labour fan, do you trust, let's pick reform as the opposite end of the scale, if you will. That's one way of looking at it. Would you trust reform with the power you're about to give yourself? This is why I don't think anyone should trust governments with this level of control. Not because you love Labour or you hate Labour. It's about the idea of what will some bad operator in the future do? Because at some point there'll be one in there, so you make sure that the state can't control lives that much. And that's why it always feels very short-sighted of Labour governments to think, oh, this will be great. No, just think about it if it were different characters in this play. You wouldn't trust it then, so why let it be a thing now?
Do you think that something this big should be put to a referendum? To the British public, because like you said, it wasn't in the manifesto. It's come from absolutely nowhere. We know that the argument about stopping migrants, illegal migrants working, is bogus, because you and I, if we go for a job, we have to provide proof that we're British. I've had to provide my passport to every employer for goodness knows how many years. So we know that that's a bogus. That's not going to change anything.
Yeah, I suppose it's because your first name. That's why they check your nationality, isn't it? That's why they double check.
That's not my fault. That's my dad's fault.
That's a good point. Well made. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, the argument about it being about migration. Yes, it should be put to a referendum. They won't, because they can see what the polls say.
Yeah.
You could do it, and it would just be an exercise in being told no. At the very least, I would accept. I don't know what you'd call it, kind of a referendum light, where you just make it a main topic of the next election, and then we as the people would get to vote on that issue, and we'd have to mix it in with our thoughts on other issues. But we shouldn't have no say in this at all. It needs to be floated up there, at least for the nation to have a say on it in one way or another. I just don't think they will, because they know which way the answer would go.
Yeah. Let's have a look now at this quite extraordinary story about the Islamist killer. He shot dead 2 men over what appeared to be a drugs deal gone wrong, and has subsequently been in prison, and of course then took a hostage that was a prison guard, threatened to kill that prison guard, and was then denied being in general population, I believe they call it, for fear that he would start to try and radicalise people and behave in that way. He's just won an extraordinary amount of money from the British taxpayer. It's about 230-odd £1,000 in legal fees, and then 7.5 grand for hurt feelings.
Yeah, and the argument here is that his freedom was somewhat restricted in prison. Isn't that a definition? I mean, I've not Googled it, but isn't that one of the things of being sent to prison?
I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
And the risk was, not wanting this terrorist to hang out with other terrorists, so you separate them. I mean, wow, I used to get separated from other people in math lessons because I didn't behave. I didn't then go to the ECHR and sue about feelings. And here's what I worry about. If you extrapolate this as a core argument, right? Being in prison made me feel bad, impacted my mental health, I would like some money, please, is an argument that anyone could make, vexatiously, I would say, but anyone who goes to prison could say, oh, it's impacted my mental health. Therefore, what, they could all sue?
Yeah.
So we're just going to end up giving money to everyone who ends up in prison, which is ridiculous, and yet somehow feels like if it did happen, I wouldn't feel like it was that much of a shock. So it's the slight other issue here is the amounts of money. 7 grand in compo, but the rest of it was legal fees. So I feel like there's another debate that should happen about how lawyers are making so much money from this. It feels like there's a racket going on there somewhere.
Well, lawyers
paid that.
Do put flyers in the libraries in prisons. They're allowed to do that, and they punt for customers, because there's no way, Steve, that this man decided on his own he was going to sue. He didn't sit there and go, well, this is unfair. Somebody went to him and said, do you know what? We reckon we can get you some cash out of this, and moreover, we can make more cash out of it ourselves. So let's do it. No win, no fee.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a big win. mathematically for the lawyers in comparison. Look, I'm not in favour of the $7,000 compensation, but it is such a big payday that we've paid for, taxpayers are paying for. It's hardly like we're rolling in it, do you know what I mean? And so that money goes to some lawyers who've managed to reel in an absolute treat there, haven't they? As you say, they've gone fishing for it and they've found it's a deal. But we shouldn't... David Lammy didn't even appeal this. We need to do something about it. We can't have a situation where people who are rightly sent to prison then say, oh, but it made me feel bad, it impacted my mental health, so where's my money? It's ridiculous. Firstly, we wouldn't be able to afford it if everyone does this. We can't have
and
a
like
situation...
you said, Steve, that's kind of the point. You know, if you're going to murder 2 people in cold blood and then complain about your not being able to hang out with known terrorists, it just is bizarre to me that's even a thing.
Yeah, in fact, I'd say one of the reasons I'm not a big old criminal is because I wouldn't like the consequences. That's the purpose of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That I know I wouldn't like prison, so I don't do stuff that could get me sent to prison. That's how it works.
Otherwise, I would.
Yeah.
Definitely. But the interesting thing, again, with this, Steve, is just looking at it. Clearly, this case wasn't heard using legal aid. This is different. So just looking at it, I mean, I've done lots of court stuff in my time as a reporter. If it was legal aid, there wouldn't be this now compensation claim being met. So it can't have passed the bar to get legal aid. That's what I'm thinking. It's not actually being talked about. But you know what I mean, though? Because if you have to have a certain criteria to get legal aid, to fight your case, and then we pay for that anyway. This isn't that. This is another form of money.
Another reason why it shouldn't have been brought as a case, and yet somehow won. The newspapers make the argument that it's all about the ECHR. It's not as if they've got a shining track record of doing things that look legally sound. You know what I mean? We all quote the you couldn't deport someone because their son didn't like chicken nuggets or whatever the story was.
Yeah.
The Telegraph went through that period of every single couple of days. They drop a story of a ridiculous reason that someone shouldn't get deported. And that's what we're up against. It's the same sort of ballpark, isn't it? You can take a case that any jury, not that juries are going to be a thing in the future, but any jury would look at and say, well, no, this is ridiculous. And yet somehow goes through a different legal path, and then they win, they get the money.
Yeah, that's exactly a really good point there on juries as well, Steve, because they are trying to take those away. Again, I think that's big enough for a referendum. They are trying to take those away from us, and had this gone in front of a jury, which it clearly didn't, nobody would have gone with it. Nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like all of the stories that we hear of people who did plead not guilty to getting in trouble over their tweets. The jury looked at it and go like, you're kidding, off you go, 17 minutes later. But all of those were less than 3 years as a potential sentence, so all of those would not have a jury. So I don't know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist normally, but this one's starting to make the hairs on my arm stand up.
Yeah, me too. I don't like anything. It's an 800-year-old right being taken away from us. No. Steve, we're going to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. And now I'm really conscious about my name because of Steve N. Allen. It's just suddenly sounded really weird when I said it. Steve N. Allen is with me now, comedian and broadcaster. Just to let you know that my siblings are Andrew, James, David and Claire. So I'm the only one with a weird name. But Steve, talking of weird names, there's about 4 of you.
That's true. That's why I've got the N in the middle as well. Oh, let's be honest. Steve Allen is the blandest name any human has ever been given, so I had to do something to make me Googleable.
And it is now is wonderful. Steve, let's have a look at Donald Trump. Already this year, the US is locked, loaded and ready to intervene with the Iranian protests. Do we think there is any coincidence that just before Christmas, Benjamin Netanyahu was there with him in the White House and they were talking about how Iran is potentially rearming? Do we see any correlation there?
Oh, definitely. And also, Donald Trump is the recipient of the Israel Prize as well, so I'm sure that helps. And look, I don't want to be harsh. I think there are 2 types of Trump derangement syndrome. People who think everything he does is wrong, people who think everything he does is right and needs to be defended even if it's tweeting kefefi for some reason.
Yeah.
And clearly the truth is in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Even though you might not like Trump for various reasons or you love him, this is a thing where hopefully he will be a force for good. And yes, he seems to be often swayed by the last conversation he has, which is not a great thing when it comes to the Russia situation. But in this one, it might not be a bad thing. If the little trinket of the Israel Prize and also the FIFA Prize for being best guy or whatever he wins there, if that motivates him to try and get involved in some of these issues, good. Because pre-election, we heard he was very much non-interventionist, not getting involved in these forever wars, which, there's a strong argument there as well. But when a situation needs a little bit of world policing, there's only really America that can do it. So if he does get involved, look, as long as you're on the same page, this is the page I'm on, you'd like there to be an uprising in Iran to try and sort out the last uprising. Do you know what I mean? The last revolution probably needs a bit of correction. So if he does get involved, great. I think it's probably more noise than actual action because the MAGA base doesn't want America to be involved. Certainly not troops on the ground, boots on the ground, that phrase, because that way you end up having an American casualties. If this is just air stuff, then I think he gets away with it. I mean, he did manage to sell Venezuela quite well to the base by changing it from being about intervening in a foreign country to the war on drugs. I just don't think you can manage to square that circle especially with it being the Middle East. There's no way he wants to try and get America involved in a war in the Middle East because all of this, it's the Bush era stuff all over again that he wanted to get away from.
I just wonder, whenever I see this kind of comment, it's like, who do you bomb? Where do you bomb? And that's what's sort of making me lean more towards the fact that it could be munitions places or places that have already been identified as there being a sort of rebuilding of weaponry, which Trump has already said he wouldn't accept.
Yeah, there are also factories apparently that are building some really advanced drones as well. If they know the locations of those, these are places that
I
could
wonder
and
if
maybe
this
should
is cover
be hit.
for that.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, yeah, to get people on board before it's even happened. Yeah, I mean, it very much could be, but maybe I've just been convinced by it. It seems like a good thing to do. Yeah.
I mean, certainly getting rid of the supreme leader would be a great. Although we can't affect regime change, but certainly the people of Iran want him gone, right?
Yes, that's the thing. Is it would be like helping the people of Iran to rise up when they are being oppressed from the things we've seen from. I mean, that story of the woman who took off the
disgusting.
And I thought that was going to be the tipping point.
That was in 22, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it looked like things were moving in the right direction. There were protests, and you think, well, if enough people, if there's the critical mass of people who stand up against the government, you will get change. But I guess, it went away, that story, just as you say, 2022, 3 years later.
I did think at the time that was the point at which the West could have helped and really achieved what the people of Iran wanted. Because Iran was such a powerful, forward-looking, westernized society. before the
Yeah.
Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah, was in charge. I mean, and it's it was like in the 70s and the 80s. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And they've
You
taken
get those
it right
pictures,
back
don't
to,
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see them online, the memes of people just hanging out in the 70s and then, a handful of years later, how oppressed they are. So, look, I hope some way, whichever way, whether Trump's involved or not, you hope that people manage to rise up and bring about the change that they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. This story here, the change that a lot of people want to see, particularly in the beginning of January, is weight loss. And gone are the days where you had to starve yourself and go to the gym. Apparently now all you have to do is inject. Nice little injection. These are the weight loss jabs. But because they're so expensive now, a lot of people are turning to buy these jabs. They're injecting into their bodies stuff they're buying from places like TikTok.
It is the stupidest thing I've seen in ages.
Unbelievable.
Quite often, you get stories say, like, that people have been impacted, the side effects, the deaths, and then you read the story, and it's not that they've bought the actual drug,
No.
they've bought some shady knockoff from the internet. So literally, the drug we're talking about, I can't remember the fancy names for them, but they're not the ones linked to the
GLP-1s,
problem.
aren't they? The GLP-1
Yeah, all those.
suppressants.
But it's not that that's being injected in the dodgy ones. So all of these stories of people buying moody stuff offline. Why? Because it's a bit like people are saying, I'd love to go to the doctors to get my medicine, but they're a bit busy, so I'm going to get it off someone on the internet who's asking Grok to put them in a bikini. I mean, the social influencers are not to be trusted. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't even do it with dentistry. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't say that I can't get an NHS dentist, but there's someone who did a funny dance on TikTok, I'll let them have a go in my mouth. So why would you trust injecting something into your body? So I feel sorry for the weight loss drugs. They're getting the bad name because people don't have the right sense to not buy stuff off TikTok shop.
It is really quite extraordinary, and I wonder. I mean, you look at people who are desperate, right? And I'm talking about people who are living with obesity, perhaps type 2 diabetes around the corner, and they want that help and support, but they're not getting it from their GP. They're not getting it from the NHS. They then turn to one of the proper pharmacies, and they're seeing that it can cost £200-300 per month to have this jab. People are already in debt. People have gone into debt buying them the right way. So it's almost, I mean, it is the most ridiculous thing you can do. It's so stupid. It's like buying any drugs online just through some random, Indian pharmacy or whatever. I wouldn't trust them at all. But I can see why people think that's an option.
But it doesn't pass the sniff test, does it?
No.
Of like, do you trust this thing that you're injecting into yourself to have like traceability, that this is the correct chemical? Because that's what it comes down to. If this is the wrong chemical, it's going to do you harm. If it's the right chemical, it might help.
It's like going to a drug dealer, isn't it? And expecting a clean drug, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose, but somehow it feels even worse because it feels like the drug dealers, at least they somehow know what they're doing. You know you're buying something that's bad for you. I suppose that's what I'm thinking. You go to a drug dealer, you know you're buying bad stuff, whereas you go into someone who's an influencer. Why would you trust them to do anything?
Honestly, it absolutely defies logic. But I can also see that there are people desperate, and maybe it's a lot of young people, I would have thought, going through TikTok shop, maybe.
I don't know. I can't help but think that people who are genuinely desperate, genuinely having the level of body mass index that would qualify you for NHS help, that they'll get the help. That, that's our system is set up, and West Streeting wants to roll it out more to get more people back in work. That if you are that, because there's two different ones. There is your weight is causing you a medical problem, and for that I do think this is a great treatment. We've spent decades saying, if only there was a pill that helped you lose weight. Well, it's not quite a pill yet. So maybe it is good if you're impacting your health by being that large, use some drugs to get you not that large. But if you are just someone who wants to trim up because you've had a big Christmas, then you're being an idiot in all directions.
Yeah. In fact, I have to report that Wegovy has now created a pill form. It's just passed its first stage of daily pill.
Oh, right.
It's just passed its first stage of whatever it's called.
Crush that up and put it in a creme brulee and I'll have it.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't even know. Just shove it in there. You just suddenly go, I'm not hungry. Children to be vaccinated against chickenpox for the first time. Now, you're obviously a good deal younger than I am, but I remember having chickenpox, and it was not very nice at all.
Yeah, I had it when I was really young. Actually, I can point to the scar that I've still got.
Yeah,
from
we've all
it,
got a
but,
mother spot, right? It's called isn't it called the mother spot?
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know the name
The
for it.
first one that comes up normally is the one that you scar with.
Oh, right. Yeah, mine was up there.
Yeah.
Although I've got another one on my arm as well, but I'm not getting that out. What kind of a
wondered
show
where
is
you were-
this? So I've got two kids, and I've had them both done. We paid privately, just because I remember, it's a scary thing. Because you don't want scars. It's the thing when it's in your system, it comes back later as shingles, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember my dad had that as well.
Yeah.
But look, this is being offered. It's not being. This is the problem now. The V word is so linked to what happened during COVID. I know I've brought it up as a topic, but it's kind of in our heads, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being offered a vaccine is a world apart from being coerced into it. No one should be forced into having it. You should always have the right to get it if you want. So yeah, I'm kind of in favour of this move.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And of course, shingles vaccines are being offered to older people. So that's sort of both ends of the spectrum there of the most vulnerable people with this disease, because the shingles is absolutely awful. But it is interesting, and I always think to myself, there are mothers in other parts of the world that would walk for days and days and days to get their child a vaccine, and yet in the sort of middle classes here, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. I just find it very interesting that there are people who know how incredible vaccines have been for the human population and would do anything to get their kid vaccinated.
You're getting into my deep theories now. There's two things. One is that I think some people don't have the family memories of people who've been impacted by stuff. I think a few generations ago, people had relatives who were left blind after measles or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
When that goes from the memory, it changes the way you look at it. And to get a bit trolley cart problem on this, the trolley cart dilemma of would you pull the handle to move a train that then goes from killing one people to 5 people to 1. People prefer to do the passive action so you don't feel blame from it. So given a choice about not getting a vaccine, and if a disease comes along and it impacts your children, you are passive in that, so you don't necessarily feel the same blame as you would if you were active in getting a vaccine that causes your children problems. So part of our human psyche prefers to do the my hands on this. And that's why I think it's very easy to then think, oh, I will not get vaccines for my kids in case there's a risk there, in comparison to the disease, which isn't your fault if it comes along.
Yeah, and of course herd immunity is absolutely vital, especially for kids of school age. Steve, been a real pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. I hope we get to do it again in 2026. Steve N. Allen there, comedian and broadcaster. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon. Just to let you know, we are expecting a press conference at 2 o'clock regarding the inferno in the Swiss bar that has killed, they're still unfortunately counting the numbers, but it's somewhere in the mid-40s we're led to believe now, and 115 injured, most severely injured. We're just waiting to see if that press conference is going to be in English or in French. If it is in English, we'll bring it to you. If it's in French, we'll get it translated, and I will tell you all about it a little bit later on in the show. So don't worry, we're over it, we're looking at it, and we're keeping an eye on it to see if there are any British nationals that were involved in that disaster. In the meantime, the top story of the day I want to talk to you about is digital IDs. It is being reported now that newborn babies could be given digital IDs in a deeply sinister expansion of controversial Labour policies discussed in secret by ministers. Now, this digital ID idea came from nowhere, didn't it? And I don't think any of us are buying the reason that these will be forced upon us, and that is that it's to stop illegal migrants from working in the black economy. Well, they don't already ask for IDs when they're working in that economy. You and I are asked to prove who we are if we go for a new job. So none of us are buying that as an excuse. And it seems now that already that kind of mission creep is creeping. So that's what we're talking about. I want to hear from you. Do you still support this idea? Did you support this idea? Do you believe if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear? Or do you think that this is, you wouldn't trust this government or any government with that level of information in one place? 0344 499 1000. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Martin Beckford, policy editor for the Daily Mail. And Martin, it's your story that, of course, I was reading this morning. A very good afternoon to you. Do you see this as sinister? They're saying that it's not going to be mandated for babies.
Yes, well, as you said, this isn't something that the government has announced publicly yet. They held some meetings behind closed doors with civil society groups, and it's from that we heard about what was being discussed. And so that's added to the suspicion that the government isn't being very open about what they actually want or why they want to do it. So you can understand why that's added to people's suspicions about the whole scheme.
The thing is, though, they haven't even sold to us the idea that this is going to be better for us before the idea of bringing babies into this, who, as far as I know, unless we're going to start making them start working down chimneys, are not going to be looking for jobs. That's right. I think that's part of the problem the government has had, is that it hasn't really decided how it's trying to sell this. Initially, Keir Starmer announced it in September as a way to cut illegal immigration by saying that it would there would be mandatory right to work checks, and so that would stop people working in the black economy. But there already are mandatory work checks, right?
That's right.
Have to go through those and have done for quite some time.
Exactly, yes. And as you said at the start, that wouldn't deter the people who are already unscrupulous employers. My suspicion is that the government felt it had to do that because there was nothing in its election manifesto about digital ID, but there were references to tackling illegal immigration. So I think that was its way in. They said, well, we promised we'd tackle illegal immigration, so this is how we'll do it. But since then, Keir Starmer has changed tack somewhat and is now trying to focus on the benefits it would bring to people in everyday life. You know, it's actually used the word faff, to cutting the faff from everyday life by making it easier to apply for a child's school place or access public services.
We sort of manage okay. I mean, life is faff, right? I mean,
yes, exactly.
I hate the adulting part of my life, like everybody does. But you get through it. I don't need a digital ID in order to make that. I've already got my Patients Know Best. I've already got my NHS. I don't need anything else.
No, that's a good point. And the example they use is having to rummage through drawers to find paper bills or council tax bills or whatever. But as I'm sure most people will say, well, we get all that on email now, and it's easy to search for. The days of looking for recent bills in the bottom drawer are long gone.
Yeah, long gone. I mean, even my gas and electricity bill, which is all online, you just PDF link it to whatever. Anyway, exactly. What about the numbers of people now who are starting to say, no, we don't want this? There's another story that says, look, actually, people to begin with, I don't think minded the idea of ID, but it was when the digital bit was thrown in front of it that we started to then figure out what was going on.
Yes, that's right. Although the previous Labour government had tried to bring in ID cards, and those would have been, actual physical cards. There was still a lot of opposition to that, even though there wasn't the same concerns about surveillance, and that was scrapped by the coalition government in 2010. In recent years, it seems that ID cards have become relatively popular again, and YouGov have been tracking this for the past 5 years, and there was general approval, and even last summer it was only 25% of people said they were opposed to it, but then they redid their survey in December, and the approval had plummeted, and now a majority of people are opposed to ID cards. So and that's basically since Labour have announced their policy. So you'd imagine that would be slightly worrying for those in number 10 who are trying to sell it. And separately, almost 3 million people have signed a petition on the parliamentary website saying they oppose it, and there have already been protests outside Parliament. Yeah. That will only continue.
I know that we're not used to seeing this government U-turn, but maybe we will. Martin, excellent piece. Thank you very much indeed. If you want to have a look at that, it's Martin Beckford's piece in the Daily Mail at dailymail.co.uk about newborn babies being allocated digital IDs. Well, joining us now to talk about this further is Montgomery Toms, who's a freedom campaigner. Montgomery, good afternoon. It's good to see you. Look, we were sold this on the basis, or we are being sold this on the basis that this is the magic pill that will stop the boats coming across the channel. Are we buying it though?
No, absolutely not. And as it was just mentioned, almost 3 million people signed the petition against it, as I think you said, yourself included. Yeah. It's actually quite difficult to get people to sign a petition, as easy as it is to do. Most people can't be bothered. So to get that kind of number just gives you a bit of an idea as to how the public are responding here. But you also mentioned mission creep. And, we saw back in kind of 2021 as well, kind of vaccine passports and vaccine mandates. And this is something that I fought against a lot, because it introduces a papers, please culture that we don't have in Britain. And Tony Blair tried to introduce them. That failed. And then we had ID cards during the war. Winston Churchill then said, no, but this is anti-British. It was an emergency measure. We're going to kill it. We're going to get rid of it, because that's not how we operate. So we've gone from, this is going to stop the boats, which no one took seriously, to now this kind of the C word that always gets dropped, convenience. And then now talking about newborn babies. And then they have the audacity to say that a mission creep is somewhat of a conspiracy. Well, it's not, is it? Because in the space of just a few months, you've managed to go from illegal migration to now babies and convenience, and we just don't need it. I can't name a single genuine benefit for having a digital ID, apart from, in their eyes, tracking us, monitoring us, surveilling us, and bringing in more of this sort of authoritarian top-down approach to what used to be a free country. This will be weaponized when it comes to free speech, attacks on free speech, in regards to kind of net zero and ULEZ and where we go and carbon credits. The application of authoritarian measures when it comes to a Brits card and digital ID is endless. And we get called a conspiracy theorist for saying this, but it's simply not true.
No, I mean, I've been looking at the social credit system in China, which already there are some things in there that you recognise, and one of them is putting your tax payment records on your digital ID. Well, China already do that. Environmental and your behaviour with, as you're saying, with your travel being listed. So that ties into a lot of what China's doing as well about you being a good citizen. Rewards for not travelling to begin with, and then rewards for not attacking the government, which is what China is doing. So you can easily see the doors that will be left ajar by any British ID system and where that leads to. And there's no way on this earth anyone would say that China is a free society.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's funny because, even the lockdown measures, we replicated and copied China straight away on that front as well.
They're perfect to look at for what we don't want.
I know. China's meant to be kind of the opposite of Britain, and yet we seem to be quite obsessed with copying what they have to do. I mean, we've got all the infrastructure for a social credit system. In London, we are more surveilled in London than any other city in Europe. So all we need to bring forward a version of a social credit system is a digital ID. It ties it all together, especially with taxing. I mean, I heard recently that I would need to do a bit more digging into this, that even in regards to crypto, we've now got to...
Yeah, the tax man's are all over that now, yeah.
Because one of the few private methods of looking after your money, the tax man wants to know about it. We are taxed constantly, and now they're looking at kind of digital banking as well, linking that in to your digital ID, where we've got to confess our tax on a quarterly basis instead, automatic tax deduction out of your bank account. Since when? Now, I still regard myself, though this word gets thrown around in a very negative way, as a traditional liberal, individual freedom. And that just seems to be completely unrecognizable these days. And as a young guy, I'm very terrified for the future of my country. You just can't do anything without being throttled, but by surveillance, by being monitored and watched, whether it be through CCTV, digital IDs, biometric surveillance. I'm so exhausted by it. And there's also the kind of mandated aspect to it. We're now being forced to have this as well. There's not even a choice involved.
Well, like you said, they're rolling out, Montgomery, the whole facial ID without any legal structure around that. There's no legal structure. People don't realise this, that even private companies are using facial recognition technology, and there is absolutely no protection for anybody who is wrongly identified, and everyone's just going, well, they know where I am anyway because of my phone. They know where I am anyway. They know what I spend my money on anyway because of my, I'm using cards online. What is your argument? What is your argument to, if I've got nothing to hide, I've got nothing to fear?
Well, I would easily point you in the direction of, in regards to facial recognition, of the multiple accounts where people have been pulled aside by Metropolitan Police, where facial recognition has been rolled out, and wrongfully arrested.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's as simple as that. And not to mention this idea of, we've got nothing to hide. How many occasions over the past 5 years specifically, even under a Tory government, have we seen the police act inappropriately? And what they consider wrong, I really don't consider wrong, such as putting tweets up online, such as mixing in a crowd of more than 2 people back in the lockdown days. I have a friend who's got on his wall an arrest certificate from where he was actually arrested and put in a cell because he was mixing in a crowd of more than 2 people. It's the most Orwellian dystopian thing, and it's just incredible that this happened. And people seem to forget that governmental overreach and the police acting not in a lawful way, that's very, very possible. So the idea, you may think that you're not doing anything wrong, but the police may think very differently. And we've not even touched on data breaches. People don't even realise that the centralisation of your data, the amount of danger involved there, the one login system, which really ties, that is a form of a digital ID. It's essentially, if people don't know what that is, I'll try to be as quick as possible, but essentially, if you want to log into DVLA, HMRC, Companies House, now you're expected to go through a one login system, which is a centralised login process, which is being kind of transferred into the first form of digital ID, which 8 million company directors are being phased into bit by bit as we speak. And what people don't know is that this technology also was not invented in Britain. It's Romanian technology, and when it has been tested and gone through red team tests, they found that it can be hacked in without even being noticed. That is what is holding your data together, and that is what is being used as the bridge and the stepping stones to complete mandated digital IDs. So we're not conspiracy theorists, we're just rational.
Listen, I'm just really thrilled, Montgomery, to see somebody of your age, because I was concerned that a lot of people are being groomed, if you like, from a very early age now to give up everything, give up their entire privacy. So when they get to their mid-20s, they're just going, oh, well, it's no problem, I've done that my whole life. So I'm just glad to see that there are people like you fighting this from that end. I'll keep doing it from my old lady end. If you keep doing it from the young persons, we might be be able to win this. Good to talk to you, Montgomery.
Thank you so much for having me on. Have a lovely day.
Really enjoyed that. Thank you. Montgomery Tom's there, Freedom campaigner. Quick break, then it's over to you. Digital IDs, are you up for them or not?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you. It's Petrie here with you through until 4 o'clock, and we are talking about digital ID. Looking at the Chinese social credit and blacklist system, it's really eerie. Some of the things that they're talking about putting onto our digital IDs really do mirror this system in China, and everything about you will be in this one place for anybody in authority to see and to be able to judge you for it. There are things like getting a loan, things like getting into certain buildings or places. This is what's happening in China. People are blacklisted and told they can't move out of their own area. Their children can't go to certain schools because of their own behaviour. Tax payment records will be on there. All of your travel will be on there. So that's what worries me is the sort of how like the Chinese system we are looking at. What we're looking at is very, 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 very similar, and also opens the door to be exactly a carbon copy of that. Well, Janine has called, first-time caller here in London. Hello, Janine. Hello, Janine, are you there?
Hi, Petrie.
Hi, you are there.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I put myself on mute because I was having a little cough.
Well, we've got you now.
Yes.
I thought that you'd already been arrested and thrown in jail. What do you think? What do you think about the digital ID system?
Quite a lot of things, really. I've been trying to research it. I've got a few little gems. Can I read some out to you?
Yes, of course you can.
So I'm part of various sort of freedom groups, if you want to put it that way. We've had a letter passed round that we're trying to share with people, which is going into this. I can send it to you, Petrie, as well.
Yes, please do.
Yes, I will do. So one of the things it says, and it's kind of obvious, but I'll read it anyway. The rule of law requires that liberty is the presumption and restraint the exception. So liberty is the presumption,
Yep.
restraint is the exception. The Universal Biometric Register, which is what we're talking about, inverts this principle. It would treat all citizens as suspects, compelling them to prove themselves to the state at each turn. Such compulsion is government by power, not by law. I just love that.
That is perfect. And also we have to give consent. That's why it's a democracy, right? It's about power with consent and only consent. And this completely inverts that.
It does indeed. It does indeed. I just thought it summed up so beautifully.
That is fabulous, yeah.
Better than my sort of rabbling on. The other thing I was going to talk about, so your previous caller was fantastic. I missed who he was, but he
Montgomery Toms.
Yes, know him well.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So I was going to just talk about the Agenda 2030 with the 17 sustainable goals. Something I didn't know, and I've written down here, is that in 2016, the UN gathered 400 people to discuss how to provide digital identity to every person on the planet. And this was the summit, the inaugural summit in New York, and it was called ID 2020. I don't know if you know about it.
I have heard a little bit, but I haven't looked into it because I thought it sounded a little bit conspiracy theory-ish.
Well, I wish it was. I wish it was all pie in the sky, but unfortunately, these meetings do happen.
Look, there's definitely, Janine, these people want control. They want to control us like we're little slaves to their vast amounts of wealth.
So that went on, and like your previous caller said, without the digital ID, the CBDC won't happen. So we have to have that first. So they're desperate to bring in that.
And the central currency, you mean the digital currency?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was looking back into the history with Tony Blair, and his original push was in 2002, with the Home Office publishing proposals for a voluntary entitlement card scheme, which obviously then evolved into a plan for a mandatory system linked to a national database. I don't know how long that transformed into that. The Identity Cards Act, which was 2006, was passed, but it was scrapped anyway in the end in 2010 by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition government. Yep. Due to concerns over costs, civil liberties and privacy. So the other thing that interests me, though, Petrie, is that they have a different reason every time for trying to introduce it.
That's when you know it's a lie, right? That's when you know it's not true. And the most recent one, I think, is the most cynical. And that is because they know that we are all really angry and upset with the number of illegal migrants coming to this country and remaining without right to remain. And so they're thinking that we're stupid enough that if they link it to that, then we'll all go, oh, yeah, brilliant idea, let's do it. But we're not that dumb, right? We know that that's not true. Yes, and it's almost like they've allowed it so that we get this cross. I mean, it does make you think that, doesn't it? Yeah, it doesn't. It wouldn't. Look, it doesn't surprise me. Although I've just said I'm not into conspiracy theories, I'm also not stupid, and I do think that how have you let it get so bad, and then you try and sell us this lame duck? Well, I think all conspiracy theories are different versions of the official story. That's all we're doing. We're trying to find other, reasons that something might have happened. Nothing conspiratorial. It's just researching, Yeah. But Tony Blair said it was about that digital ID was needed to stop populism, which surprised me. And wasn't that what he was voted in on? I don't know. But I mean, look, this is the thing: is that we know this is a dud, right? We know that this is not what they say it is, and we've just got to keep you, me, people at Montgomery, all the people calling, all the people messaging. We've just got to stand by our guns and say no. The presumption is we are innocent, free people. we do not have to prove. I shouldn't have to prove that I'm not guilty of anything.
Yeah.
You know, that they need to find. If they want to hold me in the street, they can find out who I am. Not me have to prove it. It's as simple as that. Janine, I'm with you 100%. Do send me that. I'd love to read it, so do send me that letter. Right, stay where you are. There is so much more to come, and of course more calls from you.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good afternoon to you. It is Petrie Hosken here with you until 4 o'clock this afternoon. And just to let you know, we are expecting a press conference from Switzerland regarding the shocking and horrific inferno that has seen at least 40 people dead. Those numbers have not been solidified yet. So we think it's around in the mid-40s that have died, and at least 115 very severely injured in that inferno. There is supposed to be an update from the people of Switzerland, and we are waiting on that at the moment. It hasn't started yet. We also believe that that press conference will be in French, so if it's in English we'll bring it to you, but if it's in French, what we'll do is we'll get my team will be looking across it and we'll bring you all the pertinent information that you need a little bit later on in this hour, particularly if there are any suspected Brits involved in that fire. But we will be updating you. It's not that we're not doing it, it is just we're trying to bring you the accurate information as soon as we can do it. So that ski resort tragedy, we will be updating you on that as soon as we've heard from authorities in that country. What we're talking about for the next couple of hours is digital IDs. I want to know from you if you support the idea of a digital ID. Do you think there's nothing to fear, really, from a digital ID, as long as you're a decent, honest person? I always say to people like that, it's like, well, it depends on who's making the rules, because something that was legal today could be made illegal tomorrow, and by that regard, you might be breaking the law. So things like that with digital IDs always concerns me. Who's in power, and can we trust any of them? Any of, I don't care what persuasion you are in politically, I wouldn't trust them to carry my shopping, let alone to have all of my information in one place. So we are talking about that. Please give me a call, 0344 499 1000. For those of you who are listening on radio and not able to read what we're saying about those calls, calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back, and you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Now, though, there's another massive story today which I think will perplex and potentially anger you. An Islamist killer who took a prison officer a hostage and demanded the release of the hate preacher Abu Qatada has won £240,000 from the British taxpayer. David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, has just signed off £7,500 in compensation and has agreed for us to foot the £234,000 legal bill for Fuad Awale, a convicted double murderer, after a judge ruled that his treatment in jail breached his human rights. Now, Awale was transferred to a special separation unit for the country's most dangerous prisoners after he and another inmate ambushed the prison officer and threatened to kill him. He claimed his segregation, designed to prevent him from harming officers and radicalising other inmates, had breached his right to a private life under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Awale claimed that he had suffered severe depression as a result. He also asked to associate with extremists such as the Fusilier Rigby killer, and was denied the right to do that because people worried about radicalisation. So that's the story. And now to get more information on this, really, is Jamie Jenkins, political and economic media commentator. It's an extraordinary story that I think even the most liberal people that might be listening would see as being completely outrageous.
Yeah, good afternoon, Petrie.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is absolutely bonkers, this story, and it kind of smacks into why many people have been talking for years about coming out of the ECHR. There's talk of doing that, obviously try and stop the boats and the illegal immigration that's coming over. But when you hear of these kind of cases where, you know, I would say that the person here has given up their right to kind of the human rights when they've committed the crime and they've been put in jail. And what are the rights of the other inmates and the prison officers themselves, which is why they've taken the decision to kind of segregate him. And, you know, this obviously the big headline figures are £240,000. It's not all going to him, most of it actually. Who wins in all of this? It's the lawyers again. They're making a fortune out of the human rights laws. They're getting the vast majority of this. I think 234,000 in legal costs. But there's still £7,500 compensation. And you just think of the families of, you know, who he's gone on and tragically kind of killed in the past. This is just outrageous, and it just gives another kind of ammunition to coming out of the ECHR, or I think reforming that and how it should apply to the UK courts.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not against prisoners having human rights, basic ones. The right to not be beaten up, the right to have a meal, the right to warmth, the right to a lawyer if they need it. But I am against this whole, the principle of the right to a private life. I mean, how can you apply the right to a private life to somebody who might have to share a cell with somebody for 20 years? Are we going to see more claims like this go, well, I haven't had a private life because I've had to share my cell with someone?
Yeah, well, legal precedent doesn't normally kick in, and if somebody wins a case, people will think, oh, actually, that happened to me, and I might look to get some compensation from the government. But I think you're right here, that obviously a prison in and of itself is not a private place. You know, if you want to have a private life, you don't break the law. Yeah, you don't break the law, and you can go and live and have a private life at home. So the fact that they've won this case and this compensation hits the taxpayer, you know, frankly, I just think the government should not pay it. Or the difficulty is, I think this was in the High Court. If you go to a higher court again, I'm not sure if they can do that. It's just even more legal fees to try and challenge this. Maybe David Lammy's taken the advice that makes sense just to pay the bill off and move on with this one. But we do need some radical thinking in terms of the ECHR going forward. It's definitely a kind of a law that's having a cut across not just this country. Other countries across Europe are looking at it. Maybe it was designed for times that are not like what we've got today.
But it's also not designed for lawyers like we've got today. And as you're saying, I was saying this earlier, Jamie, that it seems unlikely that Awale sat there and said, I think I deserve some compensation. There's a leaflet gone round, or somebody's told him, some lawyer has approached him and said, look, we can make you some money out of this. And also what I find really interesting about this is this was clearly no win, no fee. This wasn't legal aid. Right?
Oh no, totally. You're probably spot on, because you're right. If you don't normally think in terms of something's happened in your life, how can I win some money off the government for this? So something's happening there. Somebody's found out this has happened, and they've thought, all right, there's a good opportunity of making some money. And as the facts and the figures go out there, he's getting £7,500,
and the lawyers
are getting £234,000. So there's some good work come out of this for the lawyers. And who's it paying for it? Ultimately, it's not David Lammy. He may have signed off on this, but it's not really him paying it, is it? It's basically the taxpayer, us, basically your viewers, your listeners. We're going to have to foot the bill for this, for some either government incompetence, or is the legal system fit for purpose with the laws and how they've been interpreted?
Well, but again, it doesn't. The Human Rights Act is a very simple and wonderful thing. Right, it really is, and we should all be keen that we keep the human right, because it is against slavery, it's against all of these things, all these freedoms that we want to live by. And I wouldn't trust a government to rewrite that, to be honest with you. But there has to be some caveats written into it, right? I mean, lawyers can. I mean, even the American Constitution has had amendments, right? So it is not beyond the wit of the European courts to be able to say, right, we do need to amend this to say that if you're in prison, you have these rights, but you don't have these rights.
No, I think that's a fair comment. Starting from scratch, we've obviously got something in place. The difficulty, obviously, with it being the European Court, there's a number of different member states and different countries. Obviously, we're no longer in the European Union, but we're still signed up to this. Getting all the different member states and countries to agree on amendments, that might be a bit of a challenge.
But the European Court has agreed to that. I mean, they have said, yeah, look, we're open to talking about this.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely one thing that if the UK are talking of potentially pulling out, say we get a new government, I think Kemi Badenoch's talked about it, Nigel Farage has, if that happens, you might then start seeing some other countries thinking of doing the same thing. So it's probably better to get some reform of this. And ultimately, if they don't budge on it, countries will vote with their feet and kind of look to withdraw from that. And then you might get some complexities with lots of different countries having different rules and around human rights. And that can be complex as well.
Yeah, it certainly can. But again, I just want to go back to the legal aid thing, because we're used to picking up the bill in legal aid. The thing that absolutely fascinates me about this, and I'm always one for there is no information on this, therefore there should be some information, is the fact that we're having to pay that cash. 234,000. So, like I said, that leads me to believe that this wasn't a legal aid case, and therefore Awale didn't meet the requirement for legal aid. So what are no-win, no-fee lawyers doing? That's what I presume it is anyway, that going into prisons and then burdening the taxpayer with an extraordinary amount of money.
And that's a huge amount of money. I don't know the full details of how much time went into this case. The fact is obviously gone up to the High Court, I think. This must have gone up the different courts to get that far. But that's a lot of time to get 234,000 legal bill, and it is outrageous. It's just, we're always told the public finances are pretty tight.
Yeah.
And then you get this case coming in, and this is just something that's hit the media headlines. There'll probably be many other cases of government compensation going up, which you add them all up, probably costs into the hundreds of millions when you start doing that, when you start looking into it. But you're right, questions need to be asked in terms of how did this case get brought in the first place? And what are the full facts of the case? We're getting a lot of the headlines around the payment today, but what actually happened and how did we get to this point? I think is an important point that you make.
And judges as well need to be, we need to know who they are, what their background is. You know, these people are supposed to be working for us. They are public servants. Do we need to know more about the judiciary? I mean, they're trying to take juries away from us. So I think that right now we do need to know more about who these people are making these judgments.
Oh, definitely. The policy around juries is one I don't support. I think it's very dangerous in terms of doing that, because you do put people's lives into the hands of judges. And remember, laws
and how
are in
out
place.
of touch they are.
Yeah, and laws are put in place, and what then happens is case law kind of sets precedent in terms of how you interpret the law. So because this case has been brought and the judges provided this verdict, I think what you've said earlier is right. People will think, oh, let's look at the notes. What was the case? We've won this. Oh, I think we should go to court now. If the judges chucked this out, then a number of people wouldn't be coming forward because they think, well, that's going to be a very risky waste of our legal time into doing that. So the fact that the judges put this in place in terms of the judgment, that now is kind of the case law, which might see a lot of lawsuits follow, and the prison service itself now will have to look at its policies and procedures related to this. I'm with you. You need to have human rights in jail, but your right to a private life, when you've ended up in jail, there is no private life. You're in jail and you shouldn't be being able to come to court for these kind of matters.
Do you think that there will be massive backlash to this? I mean, we are 2nd of January, it's a Friday at the end of people's holidays. I can't see this going away, can you?
No, but ultimately, who's to blame for this? I think people are calling out David Lammy, saying he's going to pay. It's not David Lammy who's kind of caused this kind of issue here. He's just the kind of minister or Secretary of State who's in charge at the time of the judgment, and he's got to sign off on that. I think, but it's it's another reason, Petrie, why the Human Rights Act is coming to the fore in front of the British public. Kind of the abuse of the Human Rights Act, you could say this is, because the taxpayer should not be footing the bills for these kind of cases.
They were usually with murderers or with violent crime, there's a victim surcharge, isn't there? And somebody's just mentioned here, so in my view, that $7.5 grand awarded to the monster should be diverted to the families of those he killed. Again, I mean, that seems to be a very reasonable suggestion, right? So that if you do make any money out of a vexatious claim, that you don't benefit from that money, that money goes to the victims.
Well, that's just common sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think common sense seems to have gone out of this country a long time ago. And you're talking about digital ID today, and we're told the public finances are pretty shot at the moment. That's going to cost £1.8 billion.
Minimum.
And it's going to stop illegal immigration, we're told, when I think I've been on the channel before showing all the facts and figures across Europe where illegal immigration isn't stopped by digital ID. No. We have digital ID in other countries. So the facts that the government are coming out on that policy don't kind of back up as well. And so common sense, the juries, the digital ID, this case, if we can get back to some kind of common sense in this country, I think we'd all have a much happier new year than what's currently going on.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jamie. Thank you very much indeed. Great to talk to you. Have a wonderful 2026. Jamie Jenkins there, political and economic media commentator. Just been told that press conference from Switzerland will be at 2:30, but we will be looking at that story in just a few moments' time, so don't go anywhere.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good afternoon to you. It is Petrie here with you until 4 o'clock, and we are talking about digital ID. So I'm still taking your calls on that. Do you support the idea of digital IDs, or do they make you want to scream and run for the hills? That's what they do to me. So give me a call on that, 0344 499 1000. You can also text a message to me, and I can read it out for you. 87222, put the word talk, and that message comes through to this studio. Now though, shocking new video has shown the moment it's believed that the horror flashover fire erupted at a Swiss bar, killing the numbers are not in, rather depressingly, but it seems at least 47, including teenagers as young as 16. Well, experts are now having to use dental and DNA records to try and identify those that were killed, but the severity of the burns is delaying identification. It's absolutely everybody's worst nightmare. Authorities have confirmed that teenagers are amongst the dead, and the 115 that were very brutally injured in this fire. Many of them have had to be moved all around the country in order to get the amount of care that they actually need. Joining me now is Kevin Hurley, former Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, because a lot of people are saying, look, it's been very slow, they're being slow to do this, it's not happening. Good afternoon to you, first of all, and thank you for joining me. In this kind of tragedy, with with the world's eyes looking on you, what do you do? How do you manage this, first of all?
Well, first off, it would better describe me as a former Detective Chief Superintendent at Scotland Yard and a former Senior Investigating Officer. Whilst I was a Police and Crime Commissioner, that's not really relevant.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. I mean, because it gives credibility.
No, I agree with you, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm leading back to this, and I've always said it right from the very beginning. Everybody is rushing to judgment about what went on here, what's happened. And the one thing that we do know in any incident where there are unexplained deaths, which is what this is, you need to take your time and be circumspect before you start to pronounce what's going on. And as you've heard, it's an extremely complex situation where at one end, the various services are attempting to identify people, making use of dental records and DNA samples, which is in itself is a challenge, because if you imagine someone's young son or daughter has gone off skiing and you're suddenly asked in Germany or UK, wherever your child came from, can you provide us his toothbrush or her toothbrush so that we can get the DNA to check out if you're an unfortunate parent or you've been lucky and they've just not given you a call for a day or two. So the complexities at one end are enormous. And of course, at the other one, it's just what actually caused this fire to start off. We've heard various people talk about sparklers and candles setting fire to the ceiling. That may be the case. Were the ceiling voids not properly compliant with fire regulations to prevent fire spreading? Was the material in this club not suitable for modern fire standards? Because we know this club has been in existence for a long time. How regularly was it checked out by the fire authorities? Were the management compliant? Was it in fact a club with only one exit, when of course for that amount of people they would have been required to have had a lot of other exits and means of egress? Were doors locked? Were they blocked, for example, with snow? Because of course fire exits open outwards, and if of course in that resort there's been dense snow, that would actually stop the doors opening. So there's a lot to get into to discover what's happened.
And of course, what happens is that everybody wants this information really quickly. I just wanted to interrupt you there to say that we are looking now at the press conference that, forgive me for those of you listening on radio, but that is happening now in Switzerland regarding this tragedy. We do believe that it is being delivered in French, but we have got teams looking over it, and we'll bring you any pertinent information from that press conference as soon as we have it. But Kevin, that is the issue, isn't it? Is that everybody wants to, in this world that we're in now, you've got to come up with the information quickly, and already they're saying that we don't even know yet the numbers of bodies that we've got.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of it is when you've got a sudden and unexplained death, people need to go through their grieving process. And of course, at this moment, people don't even know should they be starting to grieve because they don't quite know who's there and who's not there. But then, of course, the second thing that happens with the grieving process is people then want to apportion blame. Was there anything that they individually could have prevented? You know, say with a suicide, that's the kind of sensation that goes on. Did someone fail? Did the police fail? Did the ambulance fail? Did the local council? Did the hospital fail? There's all that stuff goes on in people's minds. Apart from, in this case, did the business owners, the company that owns that place, the local management, did they fail? But I think we're still at that early stage for many people where they actually don't know if their own loved ones are involved in this. Of course, there's a good number who do know that either that their loved ones have been seriously injured and will carry life-changing injuries and may yet die as a result of burns and so on.
I was just going to say, Kevin, that actually you've got 115 people who've been very seriously injured. So if you haven't heard from a loved one, it could be that they're in a hospital in Lausanne or wherever else that they've had to be bused to. And a lot of people are not able to track down their loved ones because they can't be identified because of the burns injuries that they've had. So this is a very complicated situation.
Yeah, and they'll be put into comas so that they can be ventilated and so on. And they can then design their treatment protocols, especially if they've got very severe burns. Quite often people are kept sedated and comatose for quite long periods. Because, of course, the big issue with burns is the possibility of infection setting in because your skin's not there protecting the rest of your body. But, I mean, it's an extremely complex situation. Fortunately, Switzerland is a very, very modern, highly developed country with excellent medical care and very, very competent investigative capabilities, and indeed very capable in the early stages, fire service and ambulance. Of course, in a resort like that, right up high in the mountains, you're likely only to have had one or two local part-time fire engines able to attend when you've got a massive blaze like this, which in the end probably needed 20 different bits of specialist firefighting equipment. That will have taken some time, even in Switzerland, to get that up in the mountain. Bear in mind the roads will be icy and slippery and so on. So I guess what I'm leading up to is it would have been a very good response, but limited by the position of where that place is. But, you know, we're kind of going over the subject. In the end, it's too early to say precisely what's happened. And of course, as we can see this press conference on the screen at the moment, people are desperate for information.
Yeah.
And it's the Attorney General of that area, and it looks like the police chief of that area, kind of saying, well, we're doing our best, bear with us. But people, of course, in this day and age where everyone expects to be told immediately and everyone knows their rights, understandably, you know, that is not going to be good enough for a lot of people. But I'm afraid that's how it is, because they are going to need to bring in, and they will have done by now, specialist forensic scientists who are experts in fire to start to go through that building and work out just what exactly has happened. And they will probably, as with, for example, the Grenfell inquiry, stimulate how that fire spread. You know, so for example, some of the building materials used in that building, were they compliant with modern day standards? And one suspects possibly not, because of the fact that the place has been up for a long time. And of course, if you've been in these ski,
they're all wood anyway, aren't they? They're made of wood.
exactly, they're all wood, and because everyone's cold, they're always normally extremely well heated, so they're very, very dry, and they will go up like tinder if they catch fire.
Yeah, there was some mention, I think, from the fire department of the flashover would have been caused by the heat that was already in that room and the heat rising from people. They've just updated the numbers as well, Kevin. They officially confirmed now that 119 are injured after that blaze, and still 40 have known to have died, but of course they're still going through that because the egress from that building, it does appear, a lot of people are saying there was just one way out, so there'll be a lot of tragedy of crush injuries, and panic is one of the worst things, isn't it?
Sure. And yeah, of course, lung damage from not only the smoke, but also from the heat. And in a major fire, to cut to the chase, bodies effectively almost melt down, leaving just fragments of bones.
Yeah.
So we don't know how bad it was, but clearly it would have been a very, very hot fire from the reasons we've just discussed. And there are likely to be body parts, body tissue there that are yet to be discovered or identified as separate from some of the other bodies. I mean, it's awful, but that's why they're now going down that route of odontology, because of course one of the things that does tend to remain is bone and jawbone in a fire.
It's just unthinkable, isn't it? That panic and that awful tragedy. Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Kevin Hurley there, former detective chief superintendent. So thank you very much indeed for that. The press conference is still ongoing. Like we said, we did think it would be in French, but we are looking at it and we will bring you all pertinent information as soon as we get it. We know that 6 of the injured have also not yet been identified. They are dealing with terrible injuries here, and as Kevin was saying, those people having to be placed into comas. They've got no identification on them. Their clothing even has been burned. So it is very, very complex. And in Switzerland, they are trying their very best to keep us updated, but they are stymied somewhat by the circumstances of this situation. We've already heard from the Chief of Health Department of State Council, Matthias Reynard, and it looks like we've heard from the police chief as well. We will bring you more information on this as soon as we have it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you. It is Petrie here with you, and just to let you know, we'll be crossing back to Switzerland as soon as that press conference is over to get the very latest for you. But for now, another big story today is about the poor in Britain getting poorer. And of course, we know that, right? We can all sense that. We know that prices are going up. We know that every time you go to the shop, things are more expensive. But is this as a direct result of Labour's policies, or is this just incompetence? Is this just they haven't quite got there yet? We've got the local elections coming up in May, so a lot of commentators are saying we can expect to see Keir Starmer start to take credit or responsibility for what happens between now and then. He's already saying, look, we will sort this out. We will make sure that the poor don't feel poorer. Joining me now to discuss this is Mitchell Palmer, economist at the Adam Smith Institute. I don't think this comes as any surprise, Mitchell, to any of us who are living in the real world.
No, unfortunately, I think that's right. The reality is that although on average people's disposable incomes have now finally caught up with those large price increases during COVID, recent tax rises have brought them back down a bit. And when we look at their disposable income after housing costs and after those essential energy bills and food shops, it looks even worse, because unfortunately that inflation was concentrated in those sort of essential areas. So the sort of leftover money that you have to go, enjoy a nice meal out with your family, buy the kids Christmas presents, probably, has shrunk for a lot of households.
And against what you imagine Labour to stand for, of course, those at the wealthier end of the scale are seeing an increase in the amount of money they've got spare left knocking around. What is, look, Labour, we know, is supposed to be the opposite of that. They promised us they would be the opposite of that. What do you think is really feeding into this, the poor getting poorer? Is it as a direct result of some of these policies that Labour have put in place? People like Ed Miliband, for example.
So energy bills are likely to be a very strong part of that. Another part of it will be, of course, that poorer people don't own their own homes. So they won't have experienced the sort of what some mortgage holders may have felt, which is that, their mortgages have fallen a little bit relative to those pre-COVID highs, those really high interest rates. So to some extent, the poor haven't got that dividend from interest rates coming down, which is always the good side of a bad economy, is that interest rates come down. And of course of getting inflation under control, which it isn't entirely under control, but it's lower than where it was. So I guess that's the real driver of why it's hitting the poor hardest.
And this is what actually really, frankly, annoys me about governments claiming, look, the interest rates are great, isn't that great? The interest rates are coming down, and claiming any responsibility for that. The government hasn't been attached to the interest rate mechanism since Gordon Brown separated the Bank of England from separated interest rates into the Bank of England. So with Keir Starmer saying, yeah, but look, you're going to feel better because of interest rates going down. They're going down because the economy's going down. So it's actually, it runs counter to what it is he's saying. He can't take responsibility for that. And if he is, he's got to take responsibility for the economy doing worse.
I certainly agree. I think governments need to be a lot more careful for claiming responsibility, both for interest rates and also inflation. Governments claim that inflation is coming down because of their hard work. The answer is, of course, no. It's because the Bank of England put the brakes on by putting rates up. So if you want to claim credit for inflation coming down, you also have to take the blame when it goes back up. Personally, I think that's why Gordon Brown made the Bank of England independent, so that they would take both the credit and the blame.
Well, and also interest rates at that point were running circa 16% because the government were using them in a way they didn't know what they were doing. 16% with the people crying when it went up to 5%.
Indeed. And an independent central bank is much more believable that they will run it properly and that they won't just juice the economy before elections. And when governments juice the economy before elections, we see inflation run out of control. We still see that, of course, when governments juice the economy by spending more than they take away in taxes. But at least now there is a sort of a valve by which someone can take the heat out.
You talked about energy just a moment ago. That the energy policies subsidising the middle class, and all these things about buying new electric cars and things like that impacts the poorer as well, because they're not benefiting from any of those extras that the government might throw at people. But also you've got energy bills where you're paying towards it, no matter who you are, you're still paying towards those subsidies. You're paying towards things from your energy bill, which the poorer can least afford and are less likely to benefit from.
Certainly. I mean, and the UK's energy subsidies are horrifically designed. So not only do they fall somewhat evenly across the income distribution, which is obviously a much bigger harm to those on lower incomes, but they also don't really work because, of course, the wind doesn't always blow. So we end up still having to have a very large amount of gas in the system. And when we use that gas less often, it becomes much more expensive because the people who own those gas power stations have to pay to keep them running somehow. And on the other side, we're subsidising nuclear. Now, nuclear is a much better technology than wind, but it is also delivered in this country more expensively than anywhere else in the world. So the reality is that if you want to ease the burden of energy bills, that there are two things you've got to do. One is make it cheaper to build reliable sources of energy, such as nuclear and such as natural gas. And to be fair to the government, they have done a good review of the nuclear policy, so hopefully they take that all on board. And secondly, you've got to remove those subsidies, which of course are not really subsidies for consumers because consumers still pay them, on forms of electricity that actually drive up costs in the long run.
I mean, and we can't really have a conversation about why the poor are getting poorer under Labour without talking about those tax thresholds, with more and more people on the lower end of the economic scale now being dragged into paying more and more tax. I mean, this is those policies are so anti-Labour that they even said they would never do it. And of course they've done it. They've frozen them again for another couple of years.
Yes, although unfortunately that is what is going to happen when for whatever people think about the stereotypes of a Conservative government, the last Conservative government put almost all of the tax increases, which they did oversee, on the very top end of the income. So now the UK has a highly unbalanced system where we're very reliant on a small number of people. So and Labour saw this when it tried to make it more reliant on those people by changing the non-dom rules, and then a lot of those people ran away, as the work that we've done at the ASI has shown. So the reality then is, if you have squeezed the top for all of the juice that you can get out of that particular lemon, the only place to look is the middle and the bottom, if you're not willing to get spending under control. And the government has been unable to do that. They tried and couldn't get it through their backbenches.
Extraordinary. It really is to be talking about this under a Labour government. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Mitchell Palmer there, economist at the Adam Smith Institute. So if you are feeling poorer, there you go. Those are the reasons. Just to update you on the fire in Switzerland, the breaking news is that the fire was started from sparkler candles. That's an official is now suggesting that. It looks very likely that the images that we have been seeing of young people on each other's shoulders or sitting on somebody's shoulders with a sparkler inside a champagne bottle, that it could very easily, it seems that is what caused the tragedy. The Attorney General, Beatrice Piluard, said that the prosecution service is sparing no effort in order to determine the circumstances of this tragic event. It would appear that the fire was started from sparkler candles, otherwise known as flares, which were placed on top of champagne bottles. These flares were taken too close to the ceiling, and this has led to what is referred to as a flashover incident, where the fire spread very rapidly. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll bring you more on this as soon as we have it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you. This is Talk. It's Petrie Hosken here with you through until 4 o'clock. And as I was saying just before the break there, the authorities are now suggesting that the fire was indeed started, as many people suspected it was, from a sparkler candle. These are flares that are put into top of champagne bottles, and it would appear that it got too close to the ceiling. But with more information on this and what else has been said during that press conference is Paul Sims, who's a special correspondent at The Sun, and Paul is in Sion in Switzerland, outside the bar, the scene of the disaster. Paul, you've been allowed to move a little closer, I believe, to the scene of the tragedy. There was a huge cordon earlier on.
Yes, that's right. You'll be able to see the bar just over my shoulder there, the La Constellation. It's covered at the moment, has been since the incident on New Year's Day, by white screens and forensic tents. We've been allowed to get a little bit closer, and as you say, this press conference that's just taken place in the last few minutes, I think there are three key takeaways from it. The first is that of the 119 that are in hospital, 71 of those are Swiss nationals. Other nationalities include Italians and French, but there is at the moment no mention of any British casualties. We've obviously been waiting for information and alerts to come through regarding that, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be any confirmation yet of British involvement, although there are a number of people in the hospitals who are yet to be identified. So it is a very fluid process at the moment. The other thing that it caught my eye during the press conference was that the champagne bottles that were linked to the fire, they were connected with flares, sparklers, which were carried by waitresses that were on top of other people's shoulders. They have confirmed through this press conference that that is believed to be the source of this devastating fire, which ripped behind the bar behind me. I think the final thing that is also very notable is that the police are now talking about a potential criminal investigation into negligence and regarding the safety steps that were taken within this bar by the owners and by the people inside, whether or not the emergency exits were able to be opened at the time, the access points. We've seen obviously the shocking video footage already that shows a surge of people heading up a very narrow staircase from the basement of La Constellation up the stairs in a desperate bid to get out. It would appear from those videos, it's not confirmed at the moment, that it appears to be only one exit point. So the question has to be, were the fire exits accessible? Were they open? And if they were, why were people not allowed or not able to get out of those, and instead being forced to make their way up the stairs as the flames ripped through the ceiling?
There's also questions, aren't there, Paul, about what was on the ceilings, this foam-style soundproofing, which many locals are saying that we had to change all of ours. We don't know if they did the same thing as we've had to do.
Yeah, this will form part of the investigation, the initial investigation, and potentially the criminal investigation that I'm almost certain will follow. The insulating foam is obviously because it's a music venue, it's to keep the noise down, but the temperature inside the basement it added to the fact that these sparklers were going off. It appears to be a perfect storm, and the videos clearly show that the fire took hold within seconds. There was very little that people could do apart from to charge up the stairs in a desperate bid to get out. They then broke the windows using chairs, hurling them through the windows to break the glass, which allowed air inside, which gave the fire extra legs, and it consumed the building very, very quickly.
What do we know about the owners? I know if there is a criminal investigation going on, we've got to be relatively careful here. But there is, my understanding is that one of the owners was there, and the other one was at another bar. But do we know anything about any injuries sustained by the owners?
No, we don't know anything at all. We do know that the police have interviewed the owners, so you can surmise from that they are not badly injured and certainly not in hospital. So they've been spoken to by the police. It's difficult to understand at the moment when the process that will take place, but they will be interviewed, I'm sure, at more and more stages as the police try and get a handle on exactly what's happened. The couple that own the bar have owned it for several years. They're a French couple. And the focus will be very much on the building, the style of the building, the materials inside, and the safety measures that were imposed and incorporated into that venue to keep the people inside safe.
My understanding is that a lot of the buildings there obviously are built from wood, and that there are in the region quite strict fire laws in place. What has the response been from locals, maybe other bar owners, restaurant owners, or even just those who are on holiday there or living there?
I think at the moment amongst the community there is palpable shock. The region here, and certainly Switzerland and further afield, there is a sense of mourning. There is also a little bit of focus on a suggestion that blind eyes will turn to some safety measures. And like I say, that will form part of any investigation that is launched, criminal investigation launched by the police. The main focus will be on safety measures taken, and whether negligence was involved in this incident, which has left, between 40 and 50 people dead and a further 120 injured. Of those 120, we believe 80 of those are in a critical condition.
Very young people there as well, which I would find surprising if it was in this country. 16-year-olds in the bar. And it seems to be that most of the injured are very young.
Yeah, most of the youngest we've heard of is 15, and it goes up to the ages of 25. They're very young. It's a popular bar for young people in Crans-Montana. They go here on a regular basis. It's split over 2 floors, ground floor and a basement. And as you've seen from the video footage, I think initially they didn't realise how devastating this fire was, because you can see the fire starts to take hold on the ceiling, and they're trying to. You can see one party goer trying to essentially douse the flames with a t-shirt, but you can see other people are continuing to dance, and then it was very quickly after that, people start to realise exactly what is unfolding and then rush to the exit.
A lot of
they are very young.
It seems as well, I was reading earlier on that there were such vast numbers of injured and very seriously injured that not everybody could be dealt with in the area of Sion. So a lot of people have been moved to places like Lausanne and bigger hubs medically.
Yeah. This situation, the scale of it is so vast, there's so many people involved that it very quickly overwhelmed the local emergency response. You had, I think, over 40 ambulances, 13 air ambulances were involved. The police were involved, obviously the fire service in tackling the blaze. The majority of those that were walking wounded were taken to a nearby sports centre, which became a makeshift triage. And the wounded were scored in terms of green, orange and red. In terms of their injuries, they were handed foil blankets and gel masks and gel bandages to treat their burns. Those very, very poorly injured people were taken straight away by ambulance and by air ambulance to hospitals in Lausanne, Sion, and various other places. Zurich have taken casualties. It is a very large-scale incident, and because of the numbers involved, there's been a huge amount of involvement across Switzerland, but also offers of help from across the border in Italy.
Of course, the moving patients all around the country has obviously exacerbated trying to find out who these people are and inform their families.
It's a painstaking process. There are dozens and dozens of people in hospital. Some of them are in comas. Some of them are able to talk, but they are very badly burned. Notwithstanding that, you then also have, we understand the death toll at 47. A majority of those are Swiss nationals, but there are a number of others who are from varying nationalities. So in terms of coordinating that, identifying them, and contacting various consular officials from embassies. It is a very painstaking process, and it's going to take days, if not weeks, for the identification process to complete, especially with those who have died, because it's going to need to rely upon DNA evidence and dental records. I mean, that is the macabre truth of this, that their bodies are so badly charred that is what they're going to have to rely on to identify the dead.
A brutal start to the new year there in Switzerland. Thank you, Paul, very much indeed. It can't be easy for you either reporting on this, so thank you very much indeed. Paul Sims there, special correspondent at The Sun. We do have some numbers here. 71 of the injured are believed to be Swiss, 14 are French, 11 Italian, 4 Serbian, 1 Bosnian, 1 who is a Belgian and 1 who is a Portuguese, and that is 6 yet to be identified. And as Paul was saying there, it's incredibly difficult to identify the injured and sadly the dead, because there is no easy way of doing this, particularly if they're so severely burned and they've been moved, and their families can't find out where they've gone. I know that has been a major issue for families, trying to find out if their loved one has died or is in hospital injured. Like I said, 6 yet to be identified, and as Paul was saying, some of those actually in comas, not able to speak, not able to identify themselves either. An absolutely devastating start to the year there for those families, and our thoughts and hearts go out to them. We'll keep you in touch with what's going on there. Like I said, this is an evolving story. The press conference is still going on, but we will keep you up to date with any extra news and stories from that. As I said to you earlier, that it is now believed that the fire was started by one of these sparklers in top of a champagne bottle that was being carried by a waitress or waitresses, and that placed the sparkler, the flare, very close to the ceiling, and it was there that the fire started. It was believed now that these are responsible for it, the flares are responsible for it, but also the soundproofing that would have been on the ceiling was very easily ignited. And as Paul was saying, there will now be a criminal investigation as to whether there was any negligence or any criminal activity that may have exacerbated this disastrous fire. The owners, 2 French nationals, have been questioned about this fire already, and the police are proceeding along those lines. So more on that as soon as we have it, but for now we're going to have a bit of a break. So I will be back after the news with so much more to come.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a good afternoon to you. It is Talk, and it is Petrie Hosken here with you. And if you thought, I've never heard this woman before, it's because I usually do late nights. So please do join me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 11 until, I think it's 11 till 1 anyway. I'm not being dumb, it's just that sometimes it's 10 till 1 and sometimes it's 11 till 1. But anyway, I think it's 11 till 1 next week. So please do join me. We have a special hour at midnight, which is just called Talkback, which gives you the opportunity to call. And there's nothing else there. There's just you and me chatting. So please do join me if you've enjoyed what you've heard across this week. We've been talking about the dreadful fire in Switzerland, which it is now been believed to have been started by those sparklers inside the champagne bottle, as many people actually suggested that it was. The authorities are now saying that that is what they are going with, that's what they believe, and a criminal investigation is about to be launched into whether there was any negligence involved in those deaths and in those injuries. We will keep you abreast of everything new that comes from Switzerland as I think the press conference has ended now, or it may still be going on, but we will bring you more as soon as we have it. The phone in for this hour is about digital IDs. Do you agree with a digital ID? I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Lee says digital IDs a massive no from me. I'm not into conspiracy theories either, but it's not a massive reach from a lot of conspiracy theories of becoming a reality. Removal of cash, restrictions on general life, votes blocked because they don't align with the establishment. This needs to be stopped in its tracks now. Lee in Birmingham, he says he's off to room 101 now. Yeah, I mean, somebody is reading 1984 as a guidebook instead of as an act of fiction. I mean, I just don't know what's going on in the world. But Lee, thank you very much indeed. Well, another big story that has happened already this year, and that is that Donald Trump says that the US is locked and loaded and ready to intervene militarily in the Iranian protests. These protests, which have been taking place across a number of cities in the Islamic Republic this week, have been taking place over soaring prices and the country's plunging currency. I believe now that $1 will cost somewhere in the region of 1.3 million reals to purchase. So a lot of shopkeepers, it started with them, then people are taking to the streets on this. The last time we saw protests of this size was back in 2022, and that was over the Mahsa Amini's death in custody, the young woman who was arrested and then killed in custody over her religious dress by the religious police. So that was the last time we saw those big protests. This time it's over the cost of living, and joining us to talk about the protests and what's going on in Iran is Lily Moo, who's an Iranian British human rights activist. Lily, thank you very much indeed for joining me this afternoon. I just want to point out to people, I'd like you to describe to people who don't know just how dangerous it is to protest in a place like Iran.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me here on your show today. It's very important to share the message of Iranian people who are risking their lives with all of their bravery coming into the streets of Iran, and they're calling for the downfall of this regime. They are calling out for regime change. This is not just an uprising for economic mishaps and mismanagements by this regime. This regime has been brutalizing and killing Iranian people and has been facilitating and training their terrorist proxies in the Middle East, and they've been a menace to the international community. Iranian people have had enough. After 47 years of tyranny and imposed poverty on a wealthy nation, they have had enough, and with the final act of closing the front shops in the bazaar of Tehran, which is a symbolic place for any civil unrest in Iran at the moment, because we have to know that historically, when the final steps against the Shah took place, it started in the bazaar of Tehran, when people who were just ordinary Iranians and business people came and closed their shops and called out for Khomeini, which was a foreign intervention and a foreign sort of a Marxist Islamist leader who came into Iran and brutalized the country. After 47 years, Iranian people are saying that the mistake of 1979 is enough. We have had enough, and they are calling out for King Reza Pahlavi. They are purposely in English chanting out for the return of their king, because they know dignity and prosperity will only return into Iran when there is no more mullahs, there is no more ayatollahs, there is no more Islamic Republic, and there is a united, secular, and democratic Iran led by the people of Iran under the Shah of Iran. So what we are witnessing right now is absolute truth and bravery, and unwavered bravery. This we have to know that in Iran at the moment, under the Ayatollah's regime, it is absolutely illegal, and it's punishable by death to even call an alliance, to call for an alliance with the Pahlavi family. This is the regime that has terrorized Iran, and it has terrorized the region, and has had attacks and atrocities in the beautiful country of UK. What we witnessed in Manchester on Yom Kippur was an instigation and a direct act of this regime's jihadist behavior. What happened in Bondi Beach is a direct behavior and instigation of this regime's threats to the international community. Iranian people have had enough. They are not just calling for economic change and crisis to be fixed in Iran. This regime has failed the integrity of Iranian people. They have failed the integrity of Iran, and they have failed the international community by being so oppressive against Iranian people. We deserve freedom, and British people deserve to live alongside Iranians who are free as well.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it, that many people don't know or don't remember, that Iran was is a very wealthy country. It was an extremely successful country. It was very Western leaning, very West. I mean, there was all sorts of inventions, of brilliance, of art, of, you know, it really was a forward-thinking, forward-leaning nation until the late 70s, early 80s.
So one thing I must remind your viewers is that Iranian people, even under this regime, refuse to submit to ignorance, and they refuse to submit to the Islamist way of life. They led a double life in order to stay alive under the tyranny of this regime. But the women are still educated. Our men are still educated. They want to bring positivity and prosperity for the international community and for their nation. Iranian people are very proud, and they come from a history, thousands of years of history of civilization. What we have here today in London, in the British Museum, the Cyrus cylinder of human rights, that came from Iran. Yeah. Let us not forget the human rights that we are so vigorously fighting for right now in Iran is for the human rights of the international community. The very people who came and chanted "River to the Sea" in the streets of London and the West are taking a vow of silence again, because the very Muslim ayatollahs who want to kill Westerners, who want to destroy Western civilization and free forward societies, is the leader of the Islamic Republic, and they are killing my people. So to those people, I will always say, shame on them, and thank you for being our voice. Thank you to any platform that is willing to listen to the voice of Iranian people.
Of course. And to that end, Lily, I mean, look, in 2022, we saw the massive uprisings there, and it felt then that there was an opportunity for more than just words from Western countries. But that was let slide. That slipped away. Okay.
We have an absolutely weak constitution of American administration called Biden, who paid the Islamic Republic after destroying Iran during the Mahsa Amini uprising. So when Mahsa Amini was killed for simply being a woman, she wasn't carrying a political slogan on her hand or any such a thing. And the uprising we are witnessing right now is an ongoing turmoil and situation that started in 2017. It was brutally shut down. It carried on again in 2019, and it was brutally shut down even worse than October 7, to the point that the Ayatollah's regime forces and their proxies entered Iran in ISIS manner on their vans, and they brutalized, they raped, mutilated, and murdered men, women, and children, and they threw their body into the gutter.
But what do you want from Lily? What do you want from the West? We've now got Donald Trump saying that he's locked and loaded and ready to intervene. What form do you want that to take from America?
During the 12-day war, Iranian people truly believe that they are going to be rid of this regime with the help of the Israelis and the Americans. However, the responsibility of regime change is truly on the shoulders of Iranian people, and we understand that. The devastation that was caused to the infrastructure of this regime has created such a weak and hollowed out terrorist organization that is only more of a symbol, an empty drum, rather than a heavy loaded and fully strong organization. Before, the Islamic regime had the Hezbollah in Lebanon. They had the Syrian Bashar Assad militias, and they had the Russians on their side. They've had so many menacing forces on their side, which have, over the past year, thanks to Israel and America and all of the allies in the region, have depleted the efforts of the Islamic Republic's forces. Today, Iranian people are much stronger. They have confidence that the international community, including the Trump administration, is on their side, and they believe that with the weakened IRGC and with the Iranian military forces who are joining the people, Basij forces who are joining the people, they're going to have a much stronger chance. But one thing we do need is that we have to, thank you, my apologies, we have to listen to the voice of Iranian people. This is not to be intellectualized. This is not to be turned into a symbolic, just feminist movement against the gender apartheid of this regime. This regime has destroyed Iran. It has destroyed the dignity of Iranian man. It has raped and brutalized Iranian women, and we have had enough. Our people are fighting patriotically to get back their country, and we just need the international community to stand with us and stop supporting the mullah's regime.
The problem is that a cornered rat is the most dangerous. Right, they're at their most dangerous. Yes, so even though the IRGC are saying are hollowed out, that the terrorists are hollowed out, that's when they will strike harder, presumably to try and wrestle back control. So what can the West do? When Donald Trump said he's locked and loaded, who exactly is he going to attack without being accused of starting a regime change there?
I want to just be clear about one thing, is that international intervention is always necessary for a regime change, because a regime that is in place because international sources are supporting it to stay in place. And Khomeini was an international and a foreign invention that came into Iran and took over, and for the past 47 years we have had devastation, brutalization, and death in Iran. The natural resources, our birthing river Zayan, the root of Isfahan, which was a river 5,000 years old, has now dried out. A city of 4 seasons has turned into desert. And this is the crimes of the Islamic Republic against the nature of the planet, against Iran, and all of the other criminal activities that they have been doing. Why should British young people be indoctrinated and taken into camps in Najaf, led by the Islamic Republic, in order to come and hurt British civilians here? in the UK. There is all of these documents out there. We have presented all of these to the Foreign Office, to the government, and we just need to truly accept the fact that this regime is a menacing force. Iranian people have had enough, and they have a leader for the opposition. There is not going to be a power vacuum. Over the past 3 years, Iranians from the diaspora have been pushing and shouting the stories of the Iranian people, echoing the voices from within, and behaving as a buffer zone for a bridge of public diplomacy between the West and the free world and the people of Iran who are locked inside of Iran and held hostage at the hands of this regime. We have to be united. We have to not support the Mullah regime anymore. And we have to show solidarity and unity to the people of Iran, listen to their voice, and support King Reza Pahlavi, Crown Prince of Iran. There is a reason why Iranian people are calling out for him. He is a unifying figure, and he is a national identity for Iranian. Modernization of Iran happened at the hand of the Pahlavi dynasty. Iranian women were given the right of vote before European women were given that right, at the hands of the Pahlavi dynasty. They're a great force of good and humanity and knowledge and light in this planet, and they need to return home. We have had enough of this exile.
Lily, thank you very much indeed. Lily Mu there, Iranian British human rights activist, explaining just how brave those people are actually for protesting on the streets of Tehran and other parts of the country. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good afternoon to you. It is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 4 o'clock. Now, we've been talking about digital ID as we learned today that secret conversations were taking place by ministers discussing newborn babies being allocated digital IDs. Do you remember why we were told we were going to get a digital ID? It's to stop illegal migrants from working in the black economy. Well, we already know that that's not going to work because they already don't check IDs, and they're not going to be checking IDs if it's digital or not, right? They're not going to care. So what is it all really about? And then when we hear that babies might get them, like I said, unless we're starting to shove kids down chimneys to clean them again, I can't see they'll ever need to be worried about getting a job. So we're talking about digital IDs. Do you trust this government with digital? Do you trust any government with digital IDs? Give me a call on that, 0344 499 1000. Matthew has done just that in Warrington. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Good afternoon, Petrie. Could I just say, I always listen to your show in the mornings. It's a bit late at night for me. I'm in bed by then, but I always catch that hour in the morning. I love it.
Oh,
So
bless you. Thank you.
I'm really stoked to be talking to you. I've been listening to you over Christmas period, so thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me feel good. Give me a warm feeling inside.
Oh, no, you deserve it. You're brilliant. I don't really have a problem with digital ID cards. I've never really had a problem with it. The problem I've got with this, how the Labour Party have done it, they did it on the back of some controversy. Wasn't it his chief advisor had done something, and there was a bit of BS flying around, and it was about to hit the fan. And all of a sudden he went, oh, we're going to give you digital IDs to stop the boats, and we're going to do it this. And he just thought, hang on a minute, this smells, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, just stop. So unless you've got this ID card on your phone, which I don't want it on my phone. If I don't mind a biometric card like you do with your driving licence that I can show, but I don't want all this on my phone. I don't do banking online and stuff like that, because if I lose my phone, it's part of your life, a big part of your life.
Well, there'll be so much information on there as well in one place. And I don't, at the moment, right, they've got lots of information on us, but they have to apply to the courts if they want to know something about you, or they have to apply to the police if they want to know something else about you. But if it's all in one place, anyone can know everything about you just by one button. That's what I don't like.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's frightening. And then what they're going to do? Start Google mapping where you walk to, or if you walk more than a mile a day, they're going to start charging us for that. And the thought of that you can't go and buy food because it's been traced on your digital ID. It's all very cloak and dagger and North Korea and that.
Yeah, that's the other thing that worries me is that, the choices that we can make already. Those loyalty cards you get for Tesco and things like that. So all of that information, that's free data for them. So they know what to sell, they know what to stock, they know what to do with it. There were conversations a few years ago that information should be fed directly to your GP so that they know what you're buying and eating. And if they then take cash away from us, all of this will be linked. And you can imagine, can't you, going in and thinking, I fancy a big cake this afternoon, and it denying you access to buying it.
Yeah,
that's the sort of mission creep that worries me. For our own good. It's for your own good, though, Matthew.
It's not for their own good. It's for their good, because some doctor decides that you can't have more than one glass of red wine a week.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're gonna. At the end of the day, we're human beings and we make life choices. And if someone wants to go out on a Saturday night and have 8 pints of beer and have a hangover the next day, that's all about life. Imagine you decide you want to go and see your friend in Cornwall. You go and fill your car up with petrol or electricity, and it won't let you. Because you've used too much.
Because you've used up your green allowance for that month. And a lot of people think that we're scaremongering here, right? They think, oh, don't be ridiculous, that'll never happen. I don't believe it'll never happen. We already see what the social credit system and the ID cards do in China. We are very much looking at their model. Why? And then you've got facial recognition cameras coming in. You've got green credits talking about, how many miles do you travel on an aircraft every year? No, you're only allowed 2 holidays because of the green issues, for your own good. And this is what concerns me. Whenever anybody says, look, it'll make life easier and better for you, I don't believe them.
No, it's Big Brother Britain. And it's getting, it's like you're in prison in your own country, and you're getting pulled in for working hard and paying your taxes, and you've got no freedom. We are human beings, and we have the right to roam. We have the right to, if you work hard and play hard and you want to buy something nice, you should be able to do that without the government looking in the corner, out the corner of your phone saying, oh, no. Yeah. I don't mind, if you bring an ID card, debate it, make a decision on it. And it's an ID card. I've worked the doors as a doorman, and you see years ago, and people have fake passports and fake IDs so they can get in. I get that. If a police officer comes up to me and says, excuse me, what's your name? I go, I've got my driving licence. Oh, hello, officer. There's it go. I don't have no problem with that. I have a problem where it's all about control and dictatorship and dictating what you can and can't do.
Yeah, and there are laws at the moment that the police are asking you for your identification. You don't have to give it unless they've got a good reason for wanting it, right? They can't just walk up to a random free person on the street and say, oh, you, who are you? It's like, well, that's up to you to find out. And what am I doing wrong, right? That's the basis. And we are We're supposed to be free. We're supposed to be considered innocent until proved otherwise. So go and prove it. Go away from me, go and prove it, and then come back to me, and then I'll tell you. Matthew, I'm with you. I think you make excellent points on that. Thank you very much indeed. So he doesn't mind the idea of a physical ID card. That's different. We already got those called passports, driver's licenses, but digital, Carl is in Liverpool. Good afternoon, Carl.
Good afternoon, Petrie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Are you happy to have a digital ID, Carl?
No, like you've just alluded to there, we've already got these forms of ID. We don't need anything, and it is just for control purposes. There's no need for it. I sent an email a while ago when people were, I think there was something up anyway. I sent something in, and I got an email back saying, well, we don't really care what you think. We're going to go ahead with it anyway. And that was responding back to the digital ID. So we don't really care enough about us to even...
No, I sent an email to my local MP, who I happen to know. I've interviewed him many times. And I said, I want you to know that your constituents don't want this, right? We don't want this. Overwhelmingly, we don't want it. And I got back this sort of nebulous sort of reply going, well, I will do the right thing when I get to... But I don't know what that right thing is. I don't know where he stands on it, right? I mean, it's still... And I agree. The fact that Starmer can say, I don't care about this 3 million signatures, it's going to be mandatory.
Yeah, but this is it, Petrie. We've got a Prime Minister that is so outspoken against the British people that he does say these things on a regular basis. Whether he says he doesn't care or not, it's how he behaves and talks that we listen to and go, well, we see you don't care. And this is yet another example, along with so many examples that he's given us to show us that he doesn't care about the British people. It's about whatever his ideology is and whatever his party's aims are, that's what they're going to continue to do. The British people can just sit and wait. And we've sat and waited around for years for politicians to do what we've asked them to do. So we need people to listen to us. It's getting out of hand, the whole thing.
I mean, I thought it was disgusting that they, after millions of people signed that protest document, that he said it's going to be mandatory. Get over it, and then like as if we're absolute idiots, right? He says, oh, it'll be free. Oh, great, thanks.
Well, it was to stop illegal immigrants working in this country.
That's bogus, right? We know that's not true.
Yeah, but that was their main their main sort of issue. That's what they put across to us, that it's for illegal immigrants.
Because they think we're stupid.
Illegally. So why does the British person need it who's working legally? We pay our taxes. We have national insurance numbers, tax numbers if you're self-employed. We have all these information. Yeah. We have a digital footprint because we have online bank and we do everything online, emails, etc.
We've got our NHS numbers, our hospital numbers, all of GP. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely right. And that's what it really hacks me off, is they think we're so stupid. They think we're so stupid.
Into our privacy, Petrie. It's an invasion into our privacy. What we do behind closed doors without breaking the law is our own.
Absolutely.
We don't need to explain to anyone.
Thank you.
We don't need people knocking at our door, police saying that you've committed a crime because you put something online. We have that already. We don't need more invasion into our privacy. It's disgusting, and and this is the thing. It's hard to find the way to describe what's going on with this country, because it's a daily basis that every day we listen to something on the news. It's always bad. There's nothing good that's coming out of this government.
I agree, and what we've got to do is cut through the noise, right? Just cut through that noise, that nonsense that goes on. This is about stopping illegal migration. We know that it won't. We know that. No. There's been studies done in other countries that have got digital ID. It doesn't make a jot of difference. So we've got to cut through all their BS and all their noise and just listen to each other and talk to each other and say, we are not falling for this. This is nonsense. So forget all the noise. There's so much noise that they put out there so that we're distracted. We can't afford to be distracted on this issue.
No, absolutely not. Keir Starmer said, the adults are back in charge when he got him into power. It couldn't be more off the truth.
Yeah.
You couldn't write this script, Petrie. If we all knew Labour were going to get in, And people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad," even though people that were saying it's going to be bad couldn't believe just how bad it is, and that tells its own story. When the people are saying
agree.
It's going to be bad, and it's even worse than what they've predicted, and it's going to keep getting worse, and it's always the British taxpayer that is funding everything that's going on.
Yeah, just remember, tune out the noise.
Yeah.
Tune out the noise. And you'll always hear Straight Talking here on Talk. Carl, thank you very much indeed for that, Carl in Liverpool. I'm a sucker for a Liverpudlian accent, me. Right, quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. I think it's Peter Barnes, isn't it, that's taking over? Yeah, Peter Barnes will be here to take over in about half an hour, and then Phil Dave, both of them will be here to take over at 7 until 10. Now though, one thing we do love talking about in this country is the weather. We are good at it. It's a good way to break the ice, if you'll excuse the expression, when you meet a stranger or you're standing in a queue. Cool, it's cold, isn't it? We love all of that. So I thought we should talk about the weather, because here comes the snow, apparently. Jim Dale joins me now, senior meteorologist at British Weather Services and co-author of Surviving Extreme Weather. Good to speak to you, Jim. I keep seeing yellow snow warnings around. I thought yellow snow was a different kind of warning altogether.
Oh, it is. Don't mess with yellow snow.
Don't mess with yellow snow.
No. Well, there's amber snow as well, if you want to know about it, and that's in Scotland, which is most affected by what we're talking about at the moment. So we're all in the polar air, but the Highlands, the Grampians, these areas up there on the Highlands, on the higher ground, they're getting spades full of white snow for the most part. By the way, snow isn't white. Do you know that?
It's actually blue, isn't it?
No, it's see-through, completely transparent. It's the light refracting that makes it look white. There you go. There's a little fact for you that you perhaps didn't know.
I did not know that, and I believe my eyes, Jim. It's white.
There you go. Yeah, sometimes you've got to do a bit of this. Anyway, It is what it is. Yeah, so we're in it now. We're in the polar air. Now, the snow that you mentioned and that I've just mentioned, for the majority, will stay over Scotland. There's some bits and pieces. There was some crossing the country last night that left a little bit of
the dust,
visual stuff. Yeah, in parts of London, even, to be honest, even here. But what that did is it left a really slippy, icy surface, at least for the time, until the sun got up and moved it away a little bit. But it'll refreeze very quickly. So in these next 2 days, as we go into the weekend, it's not so much the snow. It's the plummeting temperatures and the ice that are going to be the main preoccupants of our minds in terms of health and safety. That's what the warnings are all about, more than they are necessarily about the snow. However, as we move through next week, there's a little battle going on with slightly milder air trying to push in from the southwest. That's probably going to be pushed back, but as it does so, invigorates the snow chances. And I think as we go through next week, there's a greater chance that certainly parts of England that have missed out in the last 24 hours will start to see a little bit. We've got about to the 10th or the 11th of January before we lose the polar air on the latest charts. Yeah, so there's plenty to come at the moment in terms of potential, and you've got to look day to day to this, because it isn't something you can say, oh, next Wednesday at 3 o'clock we're going to get something in Manchester. It doesn't quite work like that. It's quite difficult forecasting, actually. So take the general view at this moment in time. We're in a wintry phase. Nice pictures. We're in a wintry phase. We got one last January, later in the year, where I zoomed off to Scotland and did some reporting. In this case, I think it'll be gone by then, but not, well, it will be gone by then, but plenty of time for it to return. This is winter.
Yeah, I'm literally just going to say that, Jim. Do you think we get too many warnings? I mean, it is winter, it is cold, right?
Yeah.
And it always snows in Scotland. It's always colder up north than it is down south. So it seems like, because I think the more warnings we get, the less we pay attention to them.
But remember who these warnings are aimed at primarily. They're aimed at the vulnerable, those people, the old people, lonely people, the very young, etc., that don't necessarily know what's going on, but suddenly their heating's failed or something of that nature. Heating does fail in these sort of temperatures we're talking about, minus 12, 13 in Scotland tonight, for example. So you've got to be aware it's not necessarily aimed at the bare-chested person who can walk out and do what he wants anytime, anywhere.
I'm never bare-chested when I walk outside.
I didn't mean yourself, Petrie. I did not mean that, honestly. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah,
We're talking about those people who think they can just get away with anything, like they drive the cars into floods and things like this, and then end up floating down.
Yeah.
The warnings are there for a good reason. And if you choose to ignore them, then you choose to put yourself more in peril than you would otherwise. So look, yellow, amber in Scotland for the right reasons. We'll see how that goes through the course of the week. But look, there's another thing to say here. Those warnings, remember last year, people getting stuck on I think it was the M62, M6 area, and the previous year on the M25, ignoring the warnings. This is coming, ignore the warnings, and you get stuck for the night. And that's not a pretty sight at the end of the day. It's very difficult.
But again, I just want to say, look, I'm a fully grown, cognizant adult, and I know that if I'm driving in the winter, I don't need anybody to say, look, it might get cold, or your car might break down, or I always make sure that I pack a car with a blanket, dog food if I've got the dogs with me, a torch. That's always in the boot of my car. I've got a basket in there which has got everything in it that I might need, even some chocolate bars and things like that for me.
Petrie, you're one in a million, to be honest with you.
You're kidding me. Aren't we all just grown-ups?
I'm not, no.
Really?
I'm telling you, one of the reasons why people get into trouble is because they don't do the things that you've just described. Most cars will not have what you've got in a basket of, not help yourself, but save yourself, if you like.
I've even got a medical kit in there.
Yeah, so have I. Exactly that. You're wise to this. And it doesn't matter we're talking snow and winter, or we're talking summer.
Yeah,
extreme heat. Just remember, we've just gone through, now official, the warmest stroke hottest year on record, as well as the sunniest year on record. So that has a different brief, if you like, in terms of who it affects and how it affects. Farmers, for example, lost £800 million last year because of the drought and the heat. And they're busy. And they're busy, a lot of them, supporting a guy who denies climate change. So, we've got to get our marbles right here. But in the first instance, extreme weather, whether it's caused by climate change or just normal stuff, normal extreme weather that we do get and other places get as well, you are best prepared when the warnings are out there, the public warnings are out there. And when you step out onto an icy surface like I did this morning, in your head, okay, you can see it, but it's a double thing, isn't it? It kind of reinforces what you're doing, how to tread carefully, rather than end up in NHS, with a broken ankle, which many people do, by the way.
Yeah. So, now, I did see on New Year's Eve when I was driving home from here, a young man wearing a T-shirt and jeans standing on a bridge overlooking the Thames, and thinking he hasn't even got a jumper around his waist. He's going to freeze. Ridiculous.
Is he grandstanding by any chance?
Oh, I thought he might be showing off a bit.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
there we go. So look, we've got 11 or 12 days of this to go. We'll see how it breaks out, and I'll help talk TV over the period in terms of what's going on, why it's going on, and those warnings as well.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Jim Dale there, Senior Meteorologist at the British Weather Services and co-author of Surviving Extreme Weather. I have to say that I've even got my banana trees all wrapped up in gardening fleece to stop them from freezing. And I really hope that it works this year. It worked last year, but it is very, 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 very much colder this year. So do wrap up, or just be a bit sensible, maybe. Herbie, my goodness. Hello, Herbie. How are you?
Very well, Petrie. How are you? And Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah.
Digital IDs, what do we think?
Well, the next thing is we'll either have a microchip fitted to us, or we'll have a date stamp put on us, or something, or a number. You know, we'll be branded. I've got to be branded 9 days already, Petrie, so, you know, I can show what I'm doing and who I am, what I am.
Well, it's 1984, isn't it? The identification to allow people into certain areas of cities.
Yeah, well, this is it, Petrie. I mean, to say, whatever next is this government going to dream up? Do we need it? We've got all the ideas we want. We've got a driving licence, we've got national insurance numbers, we've got passports. You know, what else can this government come up with, for God's sake? You know, that's going to ruin our lives. You know, it's not necessary. And I understand that the company is going to do is what's his name's son?
Blair's son. Yeah, that was a rumour that was around. I'm not sure that's exactly true, but I'm not going to say it's not true, but I can't confirm that it is, because it's a bit nebulous. It's a bit woolly about that. But I mean, look, the fact that we're even saying it means that we're not the least bit surprised, right? If it is the truth, because we don't trust them. And if we don't trust them with that, then we surely shouldn't trust them with our information. It's all. I don't trust any of them.
Yeah, but Petrie, the trouble is that with ID, if somebody nicks your ID, that's it. You've lost it, and you've got to try and get it all back, and all the complications it creates at the same time. When you got something on one particular piece of information, i.e., like a telephone or an ID card, you know, somebody gets hold of that, they've got it, and that's it. You know, that can be used. Is the fraudsters going to start bringing it all up and things like that? I'm sure they will do. You know, it's...
And look how many times that the government databases are hacked.
Oh God,
right?
Yes.
And this will be another government database that they're saying, no, it'll be really secure. Yeah, right.
No, it won't be secure. Look, nothing's secure nowadays, Petrie. Absolutely nothing. Nothing is 100% anymore. You know, you've got the brains that are breaking in all the time, and they're coming up with new ideas all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, these people have got bigger ideas than we have, and they are more intelligent than we are, and they really know how to break into the systems. So I don't trust anything that this government does. I don't trust them with a dead dog or anything else.
Do you? You're not persuaded then that forcing us all to have digital ID will stop the boats?
No, don't be daft. Of course it won't. You can't even stop the boats on anything, let alone a digital ID.
Yeah, that's not going to make any difference at all, is it? And I can't believe that that's what they're trying to sell us on, because they think we're dumb. They think we're so stupid that we'll fall for it.
Well, of course, Petrie, of course they will. I mean to say, I've got a T-shirt made which shows, you know, you remember The Prisoner?
Which one? Oh, the TV show. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a man. I'm a person. I am free. It's exactly what I've got on my T-shirt.
Good. We all need to have that tattooed on our foreheads, don't we? Mind you, they'd use that as digital ID. They'd just scan it. Herbie, it's always lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. This Don in Chelmsford said, hi Petrie, perhaps humans could be electronically tagged like pet dogs. I'm sure the Labour government wouldn't rule it out. No, that's too complicated. Little chip injected in you once you're born. The second you're born, that'll be it. Hi, best thing to do with this digital ID malarkey is don't use it. If everyone resists, it will fail. As Brits, we manage. We are tough. And that's from Michelle. Yeah, the fact that a lot of people, they're suggesting that it'll be put on your smartphone. A lot of people now are deliberately buying dumb phones. So the old-fashioned phones where you can't get the app on them as a backup phone, and going, no, I'm sorry, I can't get it on my phone because it's a dumb phone, it's not a smartphone. So I'm thinking of doing that as well. So there you go. quick break. Back in a sec and more of you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon. It is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until top of the hour, and then Pete Barnes will be here, not Pete Barnes, it's just Peter Barnes, will be here to take you through drive time. In fact, he'll be in just a minute to tell us what he's got coming up on his programme. As for me, I'm back in my usual place on Monday, which is either 10 to 1 or 11 to 1. But I will be back then Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Thank you so much for all of your messages and all of your calls, and I do apologise at this stage for not being able to get through all of them. But it's been a very, very busy show. I've got some messages I want to read out now, though. The Labour government is a proxy government for China, in my opinion. If you boil a frog by slowly raising the temperature, it won't try to escape until it's too late. Wake up, you're being boiled. And I think we are being boiled. I'm not sure about the proxy government for China, but the jury's out on that one. I'm not totally dissuaded by that. Richard has said, will MPs and the royal family have to have these ID tags? We've learned that they're not all as pure as the driven snow. And that's from Ricky in Yorkshire. The government is lying to us again, says Sean. We will still need passports for decades to come. Many developing countries will always require a physical passport for entry, so a digital ID will not put all your documents in one place. It's a trap, as they say. Sean from Bridlington. And this one, Darren has said, Happy New Year. Thank you. Regarding digital ID, I think the question is, what evidence have we seen with this government that they can get anything right? Very good question. Very good question. Nothing positive or productive will come out of this. It's all about control. And that's from Darren in Manchester. Completely agree with that as well. And on the situation of the poor getting poorer, Sal says, the only way for the poorer not to be as poor is to raise the tax threshold so we actually take home a decent wage and not get taxed too much. I don't use heating as I can't afford it, but the government put taxes up so I earn less. That's from Emily. Yeah, if you haven't got heating on at the moment, my heart breaks for you, really. Rex is in Eastbourne. Hello, Rex. Good afternoon.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Still breathing at the moment, so that's okay.
Well, that's a blessing. That is.
Yeah. Every morning.
Well done.
This digital ID thing.
Yeah.
I was looking at this, and all right, I'm a Bible reading man, just get that out of the way. So, and I looked at this and I thought, hang on a minute, this didn't start even with Blair. Look back to barcodes
Isn't this the mark of the devil?
Yeah, looking at it, yeah. So if you looked at the barcode, it had 2 long lines, a number of little lines which had numbers underneath them.
Yeah.
The middle line was another 2 long lines, and that didn't. The long lines don't have a number, but all the other ones did. So the numbers actually worked out as being, wait for it, the first one was 6, the middle one was 6, the last was 6. Now you look at digital ID, and they say the lie is it's going to be a benefit for you and it's good for you, but without it, you can't work. Then you
without it, you can't do. You won't be able to do anything. So even if they made it voluntary, right, which they're not, they're mandating it. But even if they made it voluntary, they'd make it so impossible for you to survive without it that you would have to volunteer. That is not voluntary, in my view.
No, that's right. But then the next thing to come later, once they've got this installed, and by the way, we've already said no matter what, we're not having it. Whatever the outcome, we're not having it.
However difficult they make it for you.
However difficult they make it, we're not going to have it. So then we come to the fact of what will happen later. Once they've got this established and people are lulled into all that, then the next thing to come is, because of the hackers, which was one of the conversations you've just had, because of the hackers, now you have to have this mark impregnated on you, or you can't buy food, etc., etc., etc. And we go straight to Revelation 13, verses 16 and 17, and it's just out of the handbook.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that mark of the devil thing. I don't know where even that popped into my head, but I have heard that argument before. I mean, years and years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was somebody like you who's religious. I'm not.
I'm not religious. I've just got a relationship.
Okay, but I and I've heard that this mark of the devil before, that it is actually written in the book of Revelations that this would be imposed on free human beings. And so it's really interesting. I've just popped straight back into my head when you started mentioning it. But whatever it is, you're right. It will become, now because of this, we're going to have to do it this way. Or if for your own good, we're going to have to limit how far you can travel. And all of that. And that's what I don't trust. I do not trust government. We are free people. And that is how we are designed to be, and that is how we should be.
Yeah, and the only way to stay free is to simply say no, and no matter what the cost.
And when people say to me, but you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, and it's like, but look what happened during COVID. There's suddenly things that were legal were suddenly not legal, and that can happen.
I carried an ID card for the entire time I was in the army, nearly 10 years. So it's not a question of, I don't want to need an ID card. I've got ID, I've got a driving licence, I've got a national insurance number, hospital numbers, all those sort of things.
We don't need any more.
Don't need it.
No, we don't. And when I was living and working in Germany, you had to carry an ID card with it, but it was a piece of paper. I don't have a problem with that because, like you said, I carry my driver's license with me when I'm driving. So it's like it's no biggie to say, that if there's an accident or there's a legal reason you're stopping me, I'll tell you who I am. But apart from that, you can get stuffed. I don't care if you're a police officer or not.
I said the words are where the sun doesn't shine.
Yeah, exactly that. If you've got no legal reason to stop me because I'm a free citizen, do one. You're not going to find out who I am. Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse.
Our driving licence, we're not allowed, by law, you're not allowed to drive your car without your driving licence on your person.
Anyway, so it's that's that. I mean, and that's fine. You can understand why that would be the case. In case you have an accident, you need to be identified, or there's an accident, you have to identify yourself, or whatever it is. I completely buy that. I'm happy with a piece of paper, but I'm not happy with something digital.
Yeah, I don't even take my dog for a walk without ID on me because I've been brought up that way. But it's my driving licence in my pocket.
Yeah, well, our dogs have got ID, haven't they? They're chipped. That'll be us next.
Yeah, there is that,
So you can identify my dog, but not me. Listen, Rex, it's wonderful to talk to you. I'm so glad to have met you on this show, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, Bless you. Thank you very much.
Bless your heart. You take care. Look after yourself in this cold. That's Rex in Eastbourne there. Another, John in Blackpool has said, digital ID, as far as I can see, this will be the precursor to state-supplied mobile phones. Scary times are scary. I just don't trust them. Don in Bicester, I know Bicester well. Digital ID is absolutely 100% about control of everything we eat, say and do. No ifs or buts. Good show. Thank you very much indeed for that. So many messages here. This one in capital letters. I will resist digital IDs with every fibre of my being. They are definitely edging us closer to the Chinese way of monitoring and controlling society. From John in London. And finally this one, there's so many more. I'm an honest citizen with nothing to hide, and if we had an honest government, I'd have nothing to fear. Unfortunately, we haven't had one of those in my lifetime. I'm 67 years old, and that's Roy in Shropshire. That's exactly how I feel. I'm an honest citizen. I've got nothing to hide, so you don't have to track me. Right, well, that's it from me, pretty much, for this week. But Peter, oh, you can... I shouldn't say this. When you first came in, a bit dishevelled.
Just a tad, yes. I won't lie. Yeah. You know, a quick phone call, and here I am.
And now you're looking all
Yes, I know. Yeah, it's all thanks to the wonderful people downstairs that make me look semi-human. So all credit to them, I have to admit.
I didn't mean to look quite so sharp.
I know, yeah. Trust me, that's the nicest reaction I've had in some time. So I'm going to take that one, Petrie.
Peter, what have you got coming up?
So we've got to talk about this situation of £240,000 in legal fees for this double homicide maniac. But I think I find it fascinating the response you've had on digital ID.
Yeah.
The country is apoplectic. We don't want it. Do you know Winston Churchill used to call it terror in embryo, the idea of wallpapers. He saw what the police were doing, and like you said, I don't trust them either. And it's not like we don't have good reason to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big point. You know, we're going to cover everything as well.
Churchill took them away straight after the war, didn't he? He said, look, they're not representative of Britain and the freedom and liberty for us.
We're not a papers, please society.
No.
And I think that's it's a red line. That is a clear red line. And I think the Labour Party are so far beyond it. It's just adopted.
There's a lot of people want to talk about this.
Yes.
So
we've got that. We've got to talk about Trump and Iran, and then we've got it's so much. It's such a great news day. I have to admit, for me to sit in that chair, I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
I mean, it's
only the second day in.
Yeah, I know. And I did think. Look, last year, 25 was just relentless. I thought maybe we'll come.